All right. What up, Derek?
How's it going in Texas, man?
Good, good. How are you down in Mexico?
We're doing great. Everybody's slowly trickling in as the morning is starting. You guys in here, you ready for day 3? Make some noise, everybody. We are here for agorism and parallel networks today. We're going to be breaking down a lot of important information. Over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, so many people have heard this idea of parallel societies, parallel networks, parallel systems, parallel economies. And day 2 is about all of that in many different ways. So we've got a jam-packed morning for you. The first half of today, actually, there's going to be no breaks because we wanted to give you so much information, honestly, that we booked a lot of speakers. So starting with Catherine Austin Fitz just in a couple of moments, we're going to go rapid fire, one speaker after the other until it's lunchtime. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you got your pen and pads ready. And John, anything else you want to say before we jump to Catherine?
Yeah, we got Catherine Austin Fitz standing by. I just want to share agorism or agorism. Agorism's the proper way to say, but I like to be a rebel. Can I get a hush in the crowd, please? A hush in the crowd. Really, a quick way to describe it is revolutionary market anarchism. So we talked about voluntarism a lot this week. We're going to talk about it more. Agorism is the means to the end of a free society. It's opting out. It's creating counter-economic networks. It's trading with our brothers and sisters. It's defying the system. It's like Martin Luther King said, man has a responsibility to disobey unjust laws. That's really what it's all about. So go ahead and introduce Catherine Austin Fitz. We're so excited to have her.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So yeah, we'll talk more about what agorism means throughout the day, but everybody today is going to be discussing different aspects of trying to get out of the system, building new systems, things of that sort. Our next speaker, our first speaker of the day, we are so happy to have with us once more. What's that? She's not there? Okay. Well, we're going to give her just a moment to come back. Let me say this, though. Catherine Austin Fitz was our speaker last year as well, and she did an amazing presentation. She was probably one of our most requested return speakers, and we're grateful to have her here. I'm sure she'll be with us in just a moment. And I will say this: anybody seen my recent interview with Catherine Austin Fitz, maybe about a week or two ago? If not, I encourage you to listen to it, because today she's going to be talking about dangerous times, living freely economically in dangerous times. But in this recent conversation we talked about everything from her favorite natural remedies to Rudolf Steiner to inflation to her beliefs on the electromagnetic body and all kinds of things. So let's go ahead. Let's get a warm round of applause for Catherine Austin Fitz.
Derek, it's so great to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. And it's yours. Take it away.
Okay, well, I want to talk about my favorite topic. It's called building wealth. And we've been working at Solari Report to develop the building wealth curriculum. And it's really designed to help, in particular, young people understand the risks in the environment. I always tell people, you don't need an investment plan, you need a war plan. Because we're in a world where sometimes building wealth has more to do with good risk management than getting investment returns. Now, one of the things I always say is a lot of times when I used to be an investment advisor, I'm no longer an investment advisor, but a lot of what I'm going to talk about today are the top lessons I learned about how not to lose money and how to make money from dealing with hundreds and hundreds of individuals and families, and also our subscribers. So we publish the Solari Report. A lot of what we're talking with people about is, in this environment, how do you build wealth? A lot of times when people would come to me as an investment advisor, what they were really looking for was a slot machine. Tell me where I can put my money in. I hit the 3 cherries and money comes out. It doesn't work like that. That's how you speculate in a speculative market, which is a whole different topic. If you want to do it, it's not something I focus a lot of attention on. I'm very interested in building real wealth. And so I can't tell you where to go get the 3 cherries and the money to come out. But I can tell you a little bit about what I've learned about building wealth. There's 6 areas in building wealth that we focus on, and we have an online curriculum. We're going to relaunch it. We launched it last year. We're going to relaunch it again in February. And those 6 areas, I'm just going to give you a quick run through, and then I'm going to go back and walk through them. The first is called Your Free and Inspired Life. The most important thing you need to understand in building wealth is to understand what your purpose is. And it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with resource optimization. It has to do with why you came here and what you came to do. And of course, one of the fundamental values that we all share is we want to be free. And I absolutely believe that freedom happens one person at a time. And if each one of us can work to help ourselves be free and do it in a way that help other people be free, then in fact, freedom can happen. And so freedom starts with you. It's your responsibility to build your free and inspired life. And your time and your money and everything you invest, whatever it is, and it's not just your money, it's your time, your intention, all of that investment has to organize around what's your purpose. I used to tell some of my clients, don't ever do with your money what I'm doing, because what I do with my money violates all the best practices that an investment advisor or a financial planner would tell you, because I didn't come here to build the highest net worth possible. I came here to make a certain kind of contribution. That's what I'm going to invest my money in. The other thing is I'm a people investor. And a lot of times when you invest in people, people are free. And so it has to be a gift. It can't be a very high risk loan. It can't just be, a financial investment. Anyway, but only you can determine what your free and inspired life is. And only you can take responsibility to say, I'm going to be free and I'm going to work to be free. One of the reasons I'm so appreciative of Derek and his efforts, including these events, is that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to lead a conversation about he and his colleagues and network can be free in a way that helps everybody be free. And that's how we're going to have to do it. So the first area is your free and inspired life. The second is navigation tools. One of the ways that people lose a great deal of time and money and literally their life is they don't have a good map. We've just been through the pandemic. And if you had a good map of what was happening, you're alive and healthy. If you had a bad map, you might be seriously injured or dead. And so it's a big investment for many people because most of us went to school and got an education that gave us a bad map. And what you need to do, and to a certain extent, the best way to do it is with other people and to do it together, is you need to build a good map of what's going on. I always say, if you're going to go to New York and instead you get a bad map and you end up in California, big waste of money. And if you go through history and look at the investors who lost a lot of money, literally destroyed civilizations by making bad investments, calls, it was because they didn't have a good map. So make sure you have a good map. Make sure you have good sources of information. The third is risk management, which I'm going to come back to and spend some time on. If you, and I sometimes use this as an example of vaccine injury, if you work your whole life to earn $5 million in your net worth, and then you have children or grandchildren who are vaccine injured, and one vaccine injury can cost as much as $5 million, that's not smart. That's bad risk management, because what you've worked your whole life to create in terms of financial equity, you just gave away with one bad decision. And unfortunately, the problem with times of war, and again, as I say, you need a war strategy. There's a lot going on in this world to try and trick you and harvest you. And that means you need good risk management. And I'll come back and dive in more about that. Living equity. All wealth comes from life, from people, from animals, from the land. We don't buy and sell humans, although Mr. Global would like to do that. But you will never generate financial equity without first and foremost investing in living equity. And living equity and financial equity are like two sides of the coin. And if you just focus and invest on one side of the coin, you're never going to build real long-term wealth, and you're certainly never going to have a happy life. A lot of the living equities revolve around about relationships with people. So how to be a good husband or a good wife, how to be a good father or a good mother, how to be a good daughter or a good son, how to be a good friend, how to be a good colleague, how to be a good leader. All the questions about building our character and building our capacity to work successfully with other people. Then financial equity. financial equity gets into all the different issues of optimizing your resources and basically accumulating and managing assets, from precious metals to ownership in companies to entrepreneurship and creation of companies, and then insurance to protect you against liability with respect to your assets. And one of the things that makes our time very interesting, not always in a pleasant way, is we know that the leadership wants to re-engineer the governance and management systems on planet Earth to relieve you of most, if not all, of your assets. And so property rights and the ability to own and accumulate asset and protect them from the people who are trying to essentially steal them or destroy them is one of the most critical issues. Now, one of the things, again, that used to always happen to me as an investment advisor is someone would say, how can I get away? There's this force that's dangerous, that's causing risk. How do I get away from it? And the theory, if you go back through my family history, my family has been moving west to get away from it for 500 years. And the reality is there's no place to go. We're going to have to turn and face it. And this will be one of the big issues. Finally, the sixth area is called Turtle Forth. And Turtle Forth is the shortest part of our Building Wealth curriculum, and it's about never quitting. One of the biggest ops, and this is a wonderful quote from my ally, John Rappaport, he says, hopelessness is an op, and it's planet-wide. And you'll see constantly the establishment publish something and says, oh, this is where it's going to go. It's hopeless. You just have to go there. They try to create the sense of inevitability. The future we've planned for you, that is the future, and you have to go along with that future. And I don't believe that. But I also believe if we're going to build the kind of future we want, we have to turtle. We have to never, ever quit. That's one of the rules. You can never, never quit. And you have to understand that you never know what's going to happen unless you show up. The other thing is, no matter how evil, no matter how hard, no matter how problematic the world might be right now, the way you build wealth is by investing in people, investing in companies, investing in communities. And no matter what the risk, we have to keep investing. So if you study the history of investment, or, for example, early venture capital, which is unbelievably risky, a venture fund will put together and say, okay, we're going to do 30 and we're going to figure 2 work. But on the other 28, we'll learn what we need to make sure that the next time we do 30, we learn more and we get right. But you can't keep your wealth under a rock. So one of the constant conversations I have is about precious metals. And I'm a great believer in precious metals. I like precious metals. The problem with precious metals, for the most part, is most people just put it in a vault and it sits there. It doesn't create anything. Whereas if you create a great enterprise that does interesting things like Derek's doing in terms of creating events and conferences, you're creating something that's creating value. It's active, it's involved, it's an enterprise that's creating lots of great things. So I love great companies that can do something really amazing, something productive, and then generate a dividends that makes their investors money and makes pension funds, the people who run our pension funds sleep at night. So it's very important to never, no matter how much risk there is in the environment, to let it trick you out of loving people and taking a chance and reinvesting to try and build something that has value. Okay, so your free and inspired life, navigation tools, risk management, living equity, financial equity, Turtle Forth. Let me go back and dive into some of the areas where I have seen people lose a fortune or lose their life because they didn't take the time. They didn't take the time and they didn't take the responsibility to make sure whatever they were doing with their time, their money, and attention was a good investment. So let me talk about the first thing. Navigation tools. We live in a world where there's an official reality and then there's reality. And unfortunately, we need to understand both. So if you go to a cocktail party, the people at the cocktail party may not be interested in talking about reality. So you need to know official reality so you can talk official reality. Or, the room may be filled with enforcement officers and it's not safe to talk about reality. Maybe you're better off talking about official reality. But then there's reality. Your investment of your time and money needs to be based on reality. You can't take an injection if it's poison, and you need to do the due diligence to know that. So I want you to think in terms of using the official reality for the cocktail party. If you use it for your investment of time and money, you will be broke and you will get killed. So think in terms of yourself as a person. You can learn reality and you can learn the official reality. To learn reality, you need to do due diligence, and you can listen to other people, you can consider what they say, but ultimately in an environment like this, you have to know what you own and why you own it. I'll say that again when I get to financial equity. And so you've got to do the due diligence. Let me turn to risk management. I think good risk management is unbelievably essential if you're going to build wealth, because not only do you need to create wealth, you need to protect it, you need to keep it. And when you build it, you need to not waste time. If you can build 1 ounce of wealth with 10 hours instead of 100 hours, it's a very meaningful difference. One of the things when Derek and I did the interview we just completed is we talked a lot about what I call the great poisoning. Unfortunately, the accumulated information is out. And if you look at what's happening to the food supply, if you look at what is happening with spraying overhead, if you look at now what's been happening with injections and pharmaceuticals, there is multiple things going on in our environment to increase the toxicity in our bodies and decrease the strength of our immune system or our constitution, whichever you want to call it. If you're going to live a free and inspired life in this environment, the single most important thing you have to do is have a strategy to understand and outwit the great poisoning. Otherwise, you're going to, the deterioration in your physical health and in your electromagnetic health. It's not just your physical body, it's your electromagnetic body. You will be poisoned. And part of the challenge for many people in terms of risk management, you need to protect yourself from poisoning, but you also need to be in and around people who are doing those strategies with you. And you need to do everything you can to make sure your family can protect themselves from poisoning, because otherwise they could literally financially bankrupt you. Another thing, probably the number 2 rule, is you've got to do due diligence. And part of due diligence is, to the extent possible, only do business with people and institutions that have integrity. I am regularly shocked at the people who sign up for an account at Lehman Brothers or an account with Madoff without doing the proper due diligence. We're in an environment where the corruption is very, very significant. You've got to do the due diligence. And when you enter into any kind of transaction, a mortgage, a house purchase, you've got to archive your records. It's really interesting. I remember talking to a cab driver in New Orleans, and a year after Katrina. And I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm fine, because I learned in the last flood, you better have copies of your insurance documents, and you better have them, you better have multiple copies outside your house, because the people who have their insurance document, they come back fast." And I said, so he learned in the floods in the 70s how to survive the, Katrina, and he did. The last thing you need to know is that our environment is changing, and many of us lived in a world where we didn't live with physical violence, but we're moving into a world where we either have to be prepared to deal with physical violence, or we have to organize with our neighbors and friends and families and know how to deal with it. I have a Solari report that I want to recommend to you. It's called Freedom and Control and Freedom Happen One Person at a Time. The number one area where I suspect most people listening to this are in danger when it comes to risk management is not understanding the extent or how the control grid works. If you listen to Control and Freedom Happen One Person at a Time, we go through the different aspects of the control grid, both surveillance and information technology, financial nuts and bolts, and covert operations. For people who want more on covert operations, we have a whole series called Deep State Politics. So all of this can be understood. What I find with most really wonderful, sophisticated, knowledgeable people is they keep thinking that they're not important enough for the control grid to track and invest time and money in following them one person at a time and manipulating them one person at a time and harvesting them one person at a time. They'll say to me, oh, my bank account isn't big enough, or I'm not important, or no one would pay that much attention to me. What you have to understand is if you are encouraged, or, now they call it nudged, into taking an action which is not in your best interest, the way that is encouraged is a strategy developed with AI and software, which is custom tailored to you. Once upon a time, there's a wonderful movie called The Lives of Others about surveillance in East Germany before the wall came down. And it's about a group of artists who were under surveillance by teams of humans. And that's how we think surveillance happens. But now you are under 24/7 surveillance by teams of AI and software. And you can't imagine, if you look at the data beast that is fielding up databases on you and your life and your choices, I dare say they have a lot more information and organized information about you than you have about you. And so you need to understand that, there's been a big debate in the freedom community over the last 2 years is people being tricked by COVID a mass phenomena, or is it an individual phenomena? Now, it can look like a mass phenomena because everybody's behaving like a crowd. If you look at how that mass phenomena is engineered, or I would call it a field because I'm a great believer in morphogenic fields, that is engineered. Each one of us is herded into that crowd, one person at a time. Why is that important? Because if you understand how it works, you can get out of it one person at a time. So you can get out of the control grid, but to do that, you need to see how the control grid works. Now, one of the tactics, and this brings us into living equity, one of the tactics that is the most successful for the control grid is divide and conquer. Why is that? Because what the control grid wants is they don't want us getting together and organizing and figuring out how to help ourselves and each other be free. And the way you prevent that is divide and conquer. You turn men against women. You turn blacks against white. You turn, think of every group. You turn Europeans against Americans. You turn Southerners against Northerners. I mean, there's an infinite numbers of divide and conquer. So think in terms of not getting tricked by the divide and conquer. I can't tell you when I spent 11 years in litigation with the Department of Justice, and there was just an unbelievable campaign to get me to hate men. It was unbelievable. I thought, what is this about? And I finally realized, oh, it's another trap. So don't let divide and conquer sabotage you in a family. Don't let it sabotage you in a company. Don't let it sabotage you in politics. These are all sort of mind viruses that destroy our time and end up destroying our relationships. Okay, let me say a few other things about living equity. I used to run into these wonderful clients who would say, oh, even though they had tremendous amounts of money, my financial planner tells me I need $10 million to be secure. It needs to be in my brokerage account, invested in companies that run the deep state and the national security. And I can't afford to help my kid buy a house because I don't have 10 million and I need it all in the brokerage account. Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. you need to realize that the thing that makes you strong are the people in your life who are going to be for you, whether it's your kids, and that includes you. They would tell me, oh, I can't afford to buy really high quality food or finance my local farmer because I need 10 million in my brokerage account. Wrong. You need to finance your local farmer, not because you need to make money, but because you don't want to eat bugs. So, we need to start looking at our living equity and our financial equity together. Okay, let me turn to financial equity. Don't fall for the slot machine process. If you look at how investments, there are a lot of speculative investments that are hyped, and the way they're hyped is by, you put $1 into the machinery, you hit their 3 cherries and money comes out. Don't fall for that. Go back to the basics. One of the most fundamental basics, and it's one I know because you're at Derek's conference, you're at the Greater Activation or the Greater Reset. We have been intermediated. If you look at your financial statements and your balance sheet, once upon a time, we would finance and do everything for ourselves. And then the world evolved and we started to put our money in big corporations and then buy the products and services that we needed from those big corporations, and we got intermediated. The more, look at your financial statements and look at your balance sheet and say to yourself, where can I disintermediate? So the story I always use is I had a client who she would complain bitterly about the yields were falling on her stock, and she would complain that her water bill was going up, and she lived in a rural area. I said, look, this is very easy. Sell some stocks and build a well. Disintermediate the third parties out of your financial statements and your balance sheet. So look at your situation. Everybody's different, but look at your situation and see what you can do. The second thing is we're coming into a period of enormous inflation. If you look at the Chapwood Index, which is how I track inflation in the United States, or various metrics for Europe, depending on where you live, you're dealing with 10 to 25% a year inflation. If you're in Argentina, it's greater. And so one of the things I strongly recommend is have a strategy for how you're going to deal with inflation. And again, one is to do more for yourself. The third thing I want to bring up in financial equity is if you look at most people's finances, if inflation isn't draining their wealth, then taxes are. And not only paying taxes, but being in jurisdictions where the taxes you pay are used to do things that I would describe as criminal enterprise to hurt you, or wasted and the services that you need. There was just a town in Scottsdale, or an unincorporated area, that's having its water cut off by Scottsdale, and you're seeing $500,000 homes potentially go to a zero value because they can't get water. So we're in a world where jurisdiction matters, and it matters a lot. Another thing that matters is not being in debt. If you can get out of debt, you want to do so, because we're dealing with a leadership which is not trustworthy. And if you are in debt, we'll put you in a debt corner and use it to take advantage, including talking you into using CBDCs and guaranteed incomes and all sorts of things you don't want to do. Finally, Turtle Fourth, I described it before, but I will just say this. The way the software in the universe works is it takes its lead from you. So Mr. Global, my nickname for the committee that runs the world, Mr. Global is trying to invent a future for us, which is based in slavery and not freedom. At the same time, if we reject Mr. Global's future for ourselves, we're responsible to build and invent our future. And we can't ever quit. And if we want to succeed at that, whether it's building the future for myself, for my family, for my community, for my business, for my colleagues, we have to create that picture of what we want to create and go and be attracted into it, because that's what attracts the world. You know, if you look back through history, freedom should have lost every time. If you were smart and clever, you would have bet on tyranny, and yet freedom has won every time. And why has freedom won every time? Because it is in alignment with life. It is in alignment with the wisdom that is threaded throughout the universe. At the end of last year, to sort of help with our Turtle Fourth on December 30th, 9 of the Solari colleagues got together and we did a backcasting. And our backcasting was Vision 2030. And here was the storyline. We were sitting around the campfire. It was 2030. Freedom had won. And it turned out that the pivotal year was 2023 because we had absolutely turned the corner in these amazing things that happened in 2023. Klaus Schwab was in his home in the Alps. He was in a state of deep depression. He was drinking Pepto-Bismol, and we were telling the story of how freedom won and Mr. Global and his team. Well, Mr. Global changed his tune, but the Klaus Schwab team lost. And we told the story, and we've all been in a good mood ever since because we developed just a rich series of stories and pictures of how great it felt to win. And ever since then, we've been attracted into that. So I know that's part of what you're doing in this conference. I know that's part of, you know, Derek. Whenever I talk to Derek, he's backcasting away. So I commend you for that. And what I want to tell you is the challenge we have with tyranny is it's destroying wealth. What the human race needs is to build a successful civilization. And what that means is we have to reverse our financial system and economy from one that destroys living equity and destroys people and destroys wealth. We have to reverse it and build wealth. And there's a way to do it that is successful in building wealth for you and me and our family and our colleagues, you know, and that's the conversation we are trying to inspire with building wealth. But I tell you, it can be done, because if we are going to have a revolution on this planet, and we are, it has to be for profit. It has to build wealth, because we need more for everybody, not less. We need to end poverty. We need to keep our obligations as a society to the various groups, you know, who are supported by the common good. So building wealth is part of the intention we need to have if we're going to build a society that works and where people can be free. So with that, Derek, I commend you again on continuing and leading this conversation. I wish you and your audience and attendees all the best, whether you're in North America or Mexico or coming in from all over the world. I thank you always for the opportunity to be in cahoots with you, and I look forward to seeing what you do next.
So let's make some noise for Catherine Austin Fitts, everybody.
Woo! Give it up, give it up.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you, Derek. You have a wonderful conference.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you for being with us. John, I know you wanted to add something. I just want to say I love that this idea of backcasting. I'd never heard of it before, but I do encourage you to go listen to mine and Catherine's interview, which was released about 2 weeks ago. You can find it at theconsciousresistance.com. We go a little bit deeper into that idea of just, you know, creating our 2030. And that's what we're here to do, right? 2030 and beyond. We want to create our own version of that, right? I know that's what I'm here to do. John, what do you got to say about Catherine's presentation?
Hey, thanks, Derek. So I'm doing a talk later today at 4. I hope you'll stick around for it. But I'm talking about CBDCs. I wanted to mix in some stuff about wealth and how important money really is. But Catherine just absolutely nailed it. I just want to echo, when this whole COVID thing popped off, the lockdowns, pandemic, it really made a big difference what jurisdiction you happen to reside in. And there was a lot of people in Canada, in Australia, in New York City that wanted to get out of there. They saw the writing on the wall, but because they were in a tough financial spot, living paycheck to paycheck, hardly able to pay next month's rent, they didn't have the means to pack up their family, take off of work, and build a new life elsewhere. So I just really want to ram home the importance of having money. Money won't make you happy, but poverty sure as heck won't either. All right. So it's important I look at freedom as having choices, and the more money we have, the more choices we have. Therefore, the more freedom we have. That's all.
All right. Thank you for that, John. All right, everybody, we're going to continue on. As I said, we got a jam-packed session this morning, so there's pretty much no breaks. We're going to go speakers back-to-back to lunch because there's just so much to share with you. Our next presenter I'm really excited about. Unfortunately, there was some email miscommunication. I don't know if Klaus is like messing with our emails, but he didn't get our link. So thankfully, though, he pre-recorded a talk literally just 30 minutes ago. He's a man that I've just recently met. His name's Matt Guba. He's from the UK, and just like us, last year, in the last couple of years, he felt inspired to try to offer an alternative to the World Economic Forum, to the Great Reset. So he started the International Liberty Forum, and his plan is to do something similar to what we're doing, start hosting events, inviting out people as well, trying to influence the culture in the world, because that's essentially what Klaus and all them are doing. And by the way, today they're still meeting in Switzerland. This is their last day, and we're going to continue on. So let's continue to set our own intentions, regardless of what they're doing, because this is what matters, guys. Rather than being at home and obsessing over the latest thing Klaus Schwab said, you're here today creating the better world for the future, guys. So let's go right into Matt Guba's presentation.
From birth, we're conditioned by the state to live within a system that's designed to control us. And with each generation that passes, that system is growing and increasing in scope. Right now, the level of control we're subject to by that system is growing at an alarming rate, being driven by an accelerating globalist agenda that's being sold to us by unaccountable supranational organisations like the World Economic Forum, selling it as the solution to all the world's problems. But in reality, the technocratic control system they're trying to sell us is the problem. The conditioning starts when we're young. We enter a school system that was designed in the Victorian era that has the primary objective of churning out obedient workers. Every aspect of the traditional state education system is meant to make us more obedient and more accepting of being controlled. Our children are quite literally being trained to comply with societal rules and politically indoctrinated to follow whatever agenda the state is pushing at the time. This has to stop. And it doesn't end there. As we enter adulthood, it's more of the same. People are convinced they must fit in, follow the rules and work in poorly paid, mundane jobs to survive, being paid in state-issued fiat currency. In fact, the entire financial system is designed to extract money from the majority and feed it into the pockets of a tiny minority of powerful people who control it. The whole system is stacked to prevent normal people from reaching their full potential while protecting the self-proclaimed elites who control the world. And here's the thing. Most people don't recognise what's being done to them. They don't see that they're being trapped. And because of that, they never even attempt to escape. But once you see it and know it's happening, you can start to take steps to escape it and live a life of freedom. The first step is understanding the threat. There is currently an agenda being pushed by a small number of very powerful, super rich individuals who are determined to move us towards a system of centralized world governance. It's being done largely under the banner of the World Economic Forum. They call it the Great Reset. Why? Well, it's quite simple. They believe it's their route to ultimate power. These tyrannical globalist forces wish to lock us in a digital prison from which there is no escape. They are abusing new technologies and are attempting to build a nightmarish framework of systems designed to keep us under their control forever. Systems such as digital ID, central bank digital currencies, social credit scoring, to name a few. These are all disturbing and dystopian evolutions of a system that we need to escape from. So how can we escape it? In late 2022, I founded the International Liberty Forum, an organisation dedicated to pushing back against the obscene new depths of control being thrust on us by the state and their globalist NGO partners. We aim to fight back against the globalist agenda by raising public awareness of the threat it represents and by collaborating with others to co-create new solutions. But before we talk about solutions, let's be clear about some of the biggest threats we're concerned about. Then we can look at some ways we can counteract them. Let's start with digital ID. Gone are the days in which we could roam freely, living however we liked and going wherever we pleased. We now exist in a world of ever-increasing surveillance in which governments are determined to monitor every aspect of our lives. Where we go, where we live, what we buy, and even who we associate with. We are being pushed down a path towards total monitoring and control using digital biometric ID. If they get their way, all of your biometric data, your fingerprints, your retinal scans, DNA, and facial recognition data will all be stored in a central database and linked to an ID number. Everything we do, everywhere we go, and everything we buy will be tracked, monitored, and available to the government at the press of a button. This is certainly not a future I want to live in. The impact on our personal freedoms of becoming part of this system would be dire. Privacy would be a thing of the past because all of our personal data and activity would be instantly accessible by the state. This hideous level of surveillance would inevitably be used to drive censorship and manipulate individuals' behaviours, leading to a total loss of freedom and autonomy. And what happens when it's made mandatory for businesses to scan your digital ID before you make a purchase from them? Another huge area of concern is central bank digital currencies, also known as CBDCs. First, let's be clear about what these really are and what they would mean for us all. CBDCs are essentially a centralised version of cryptocurrency issued by your country's central bank. This means that if they are adopted and eventually replace our current monetary system, we're essentially talking about a situation where your bank account will be held with and controlled by the state. Every transaction monitored, every cent you earn, every penny you spend, and you guessed it, all linked and permanently recorded against your digital ID number. This means that, in theory, the government could cut off access to your bank account at the flick of a switch. Or worse, at the behest of an AI-driven algorithm that monitors your behaviour. And that leads us neatly to social credit scores. Now, if digital ID and CBDCs weren't bad enough by themselves, social credit scores take these concepts and put them on steroids. If you aren't familiar with what social credit systems are, let me explain it to you. They are technology-driven systems that use big data and artificial intelligence to assign a score or a rating to individuals based on their behaviours and actions. These scores are intended to reflect an individual's trustworthiness and are used to determine access to goods and services and opportunities such as loans, jobs and travel. They utilise facial recognition cameras and track your every move, monitor your behaviour and score everything you do. Imagine this. +1 point for doing things that the government likes, -1 point for doing things they don't like. You get the idea. Imagine a situation where your political views are deemed unsavoury by the state after a conversation with a friend is overheard by a surveillance camera in a store. Your conversation is logged against your digital ID, your social credit score is reduced, and as a result, you lose access to your bank account. This might sound far-fetched, but we've already seen this type of thing being implemented in China, and it is not pretty. So, if you're anything like me, this is most likely a system you want to escape from. Personally, I think anyone sane would run a mile at the thought of living life under these kind of conditions. So what can we do? Well, the first thing we can do is push back as hard as we can to try and prevent these things from ever coming to pass in the first place. And that is very much the focus of my organisation, the International Liberty Forum. We're working hard to raise public awareness about the threat posed by the WEF and shining a light on what they have planned as part of their Great Reset agenda. We're also driving grassroots action by creating ILF action groups in towns and cities worldwide, which are run by our members and aim to carry out local level campaigning. So far, action groups have been formed in the UK, the USA, Australia, New Zealand and several European countries. In many of the locations, members have already formed local community meetup groups where they talk about ways to work together and co-create parallel systems. We've created the ILF Business Directory as well, a place where business owners who are opposed to the WEF agenda and wish to escape from the system can connect and collaborate with each other. The idea is to co-create a new network of small businesses around the world who wish to opt out of the system and work amongst themselves. So ultimately, whether we allow ourselves to be trapped and governed by the system is down to us. We can push back, we can opt out, and we can refuse to comply. By working together, we can beat the agenda that is being thrust upon us, and we can create a future that we are proud to live in.
All right. That was great. Straight to the point. Very thorough overview. What do you think, Derek? How was that?
It was good. I was wishing we had Matt here live because I know he'd have a lot more to say to the audience, but I'm glad he gave a concise presentation on some of the problems and in the way that the International Liberty Forum is planning to try to approach that. And the reason, again, I wanted to have them is because I feel like lately I've been noticing, maybe you've seen this too, John, because people have been tagging me in it. There's more and more people posting places when they hear about the World Economic Forum saying, we need to create our own World Economic Forum, or we need to create our own agenda. And they'll tag me and John and say, they're already doing it. Check out the Greater Reset. And so that's been happening. And that's how I got connected to Matt. Somebody was like, hey, look at what they're doing. And so we want to collaborate with other people. We don't necessarily believe, we're the ones doing it alone or anything like that. We want to collaborate with everybody who has this understanding that we need to create new systems. And for the next couple minutes before we get to our next speaker, we're going to tell you guys more about this concept of agorism, which today is titled Agorism, Agorism, and Parallel Networks. That is the whole idea of that philosophy, is creating new systems. And Ramiro, if you can go ahead and pop that picture on screen real quick. This gentleman here that we're about to show, his name is Samuel Edward Konkin III. He is the one who came up with this idea and this phrase and this philosophy. He was a student in the 60s and the 70s. He's actually Canadian, and he was an illegal immigrant in the United States. And he went to the University of Wisconsin, and there he is at some old libertarian convention smoking his pipe. He was definitely like a libertarian sci-fi nerdy kind of guy, and he was looking at sci-fi and technology, and he started to think, if politics aren't going to work, if violence is immoral and not the right solution, then what else is there? Everybody would just say apathy, but he thought there should be another way. And he talked about, as John said earlier, the vision is agorism, this free place, the agora from Greece, the marketplace where we can exchange ideas and goods and be free people. Well, how do we get there? And he thought, well, it's not going to be politics, it's not going to be violence. Instead, he came up with the idea of counter economics, which is creating a new economic system. But even more than that, John and I, and through my work, my books, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. Anybody read that book yet or heard it yet? I have copies out there. You're going to hear more about that today in my talk. But we've expanded it beyond just the economy, that we need to create counter systems or parallel systems, parallel networks. Right, John? John's actually the one that introduced me to this idea in 2011.
That's why it's so important that we talk to as many people as possible, because I was given a speech, planted a nugget in Derek's mind, and then Derek just took it and ran with it, right? Like, man. So around this time when I discovered agorism, I usually say agorism, but that's not proper. So I'm sticking with it, agorism. I discovered agorism in 2009 because I was growing increasingly disillusioned with political activism. Look, I want to be honest. I don't shy from tooting my own horn. We were good at political activism, and we actually had what seemed like victories. We stopped police officers from being trained to do blood withdrawals on the side of the road if they pull you over for DWI in Austin. We got privacy policies in place on these Department of Homeland Security fusion centers, which would merge local, state, federal law enforcement along with the FBI, right? We did all sorts of stuff. We pushed back on the CPS being able to visit the homes of homeschoolers because they can't access them at school like they do, right? But look, here's the deal. At the end of the day, we weren't creating more freedom. We were simply slowing the growth of tyranny, and that was unsatisfactory for me. Sure, the police officers weren't doing the blood withdrawals, but they hired phlebotomists to do it at the jail. And sure, there was a privacy policy in place with these Department of Homeland Security information gathering centers that prohibited them from sharing political, religious, or social information. But come to find out, after there was a big hack and a big leak, my name and Derek Bros's name were in the Austin Regional Intelligence Center for hosting a meeting about freedom centers, freedom cells. I mean, come on. So I started to explore, like, what can we do? What are we missing here? And I came to the realization, what if instead of begging politicians to do the right thing, what if instead of yelling at government buildings, anybody ever yell at a government building expecting it to change the world? What if we took responsibility for the creation of freedom into our own hands? And that's when I discovered agorism and Samuel Edward Konkin's work. Now, look, I'm not a full-on agorist. I got the 1040 thing. I accept credit cards through the company, all this stuff. It's a challenge. It's a slow and gradual process. The way to get there is to exit and build, or to make the transition more peaceful so people don't lose all they've worked for. We build the alternatives first, clearing the way for the exit. And now Derek, who is pretty much 110% agorist outside the system, maybe you can share a little bit about the struggles that come with that, but why it's so important that we put a little skin in the game and maybe risk a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll mention a couple of things, and I know we're going to get to our next speaker, Mark Moss. So like I said, go on YouTube. I don't usually say that, first of all, but this is the only place you can find it. Search John Bush, Houston, and the Fed 2011, and you'll find the speech that I'm talking about. And tell me if that speech doesn't get you pumped up. My 25-year-old mind at the time was just a couple of years into my awakening, and hearing John say, if you want to end the Federal Reserve, you got to stop using the Federal Reserve notes. A light bulb just went off in my head, and it was, how can we expect these systems to go away if we keep participating in them? And that's a very difficult reality. It's not easy. As John said, I mean, I haven't used a bank since 2008. I don't have a relationship with those people called the IRS. And I did 2 tours of the US, and I did one of them in an RV that I never registered, never got tags, never put the title on my name, never changed the license plate, and was totally fine. But are there challenges? Yes. Is this easy? No, not at all. Like, it's not easy. And I understand that most of the people here probably have credit card debt, 401k, a check that comes from a direct deposit into the bank. There's a lot of things to untangle. But my friends, you guys all know the problems. We're not here to talk about the problems. If we sit still and we don't actively start trying to remove ourselves from these systems step by step. Okay, I won't use Google for a search engine anymore. I'm going to get off the Apple and Amazon and Microsoft and all them. I'm going to get an above phone and start making these transitions. I'm going to start growing a little bit of my own food, right? Thinking about this in a holistic way, you can get there. It is a journey. I essentially can't be rented anywhere in Houston, where I'm from, for multiple reasons. I have no rental history because I always pay cash. I find people who are willing to deal with cash with me. I have no tax history. I have no bank history. And in our world, unfortunately, these are the systems and the institutions that we have been conditioned to believe make you a real person, right? So you might not know anybody, but if they have a bank account, oh, okay, they must be a respectable person, right? They have a bank account, or they've got a tax history. They're paying their taxes, all those things. But that's built on belief in government, belief in those banks, as if we should respect them or something like that. So as a person who doesn't have that, when I go to rent someone, they're like, okay, well, let me see your rental history. I'm like, I paid cash with my last guy. He can call you. I have references. Okay, well, let's show me your bank account so I know you make money. It's like, can I show you my crypto wallets and my PayPal and, the different ways, or the cash I have received? They don't even know what I'm talking about. Okay, well, show me your tax history. So I don't have that either. On top of that, I have a felony from 20 years ago. So I'm basically, don't exist in that world. But you see how the world I've created in this alternative world that I'm living in, even though we're existing in the physical space, none of those things matter. Nobody ever asked me to see my tax history to write articles for them, to produce documentaries. They don't care if I had a felony 20 years ago, right? So it's not easy, but it is possible. And I'm going to be talking more about this later on this afternoon in my talk. And I know John's going to get more into it. Yeah. But I think I'm good for now, John. We'll pass it back to you and let us get to the next speaker.
Cool. Thank you so much, Derek. What we're trying to do with the Freedom Cell Network is pave the way to make it easier for you guys to opt out with a little less risk. Because Derek makes a great point. He can't go to a random homeowner to rent their place because they'll want to do background checks, see your 1040s, all this, that, and the other. But he could go to one of you guys if you got a rental property, right? Because reputation matters, and it matters more than a bunch of BS numbers on a government transcript. Okay, all right. So what a great day. Today's a great day. We got one heck of a lineup today. I am super excited You guys notice I always say super excited? It's like the 8-year-old in me. Super excited, Dad. Let's go. All right. I'm super excited to present our next speaker. You know, he had me on for an interview recently, and I was like, we got the same talking points here. Like, wow. I think he found himself playing devil's advocate so that the interview would be interesting. We weren't just echoing the same stuff. But this guy's on point when it comes to the solutions. He's on point when it comes to the financial analysis and when it comes to doling out solid advice and strategies on how you can not only build wealth, which there's a whole slew of folks talking about that, but more importantly, how you can create real freedom in your lives. So without further ado, let's give it up for Mark Moss of Market Disruptors, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, thank you, thank you. Great seeing all you guys here. I love seeing this many people showing up to hear about these subjects, which are kind of scary. I was listening to that last presentation backstage and lots of things to be worried about. Does everybody agree that the direction of the world is going in a way that maybe we don't like and maybe it's a little bit scary? We spend a lot of time, you guys spend a lot of time, I spent a lot of time watching this. The World Economic Forum was just meeting this last week. They spent a lot of time talking about what they want to do. We're paying attention. We're seeing what's happening with our politicians, our local government. The ATF just made new rules on AR-15s in the last week, and it's all bad. It's all scary. And we think about all these things we don't like, but how many of you focus on what you want? You do. You focus on what you want. Do you think about it in great detail, and do you write that down and really think about what you want? Or you just want freedom? Because studies that have shown that most people don't. As a matter of fact, there was a Harvard MBA study. So these are people that are going into the MBA program in Harvard to build their future, to think about businesses. And the studies show that less than 3% of the people had written down goals. Sure, they have goals. I want to make more money. Sure, I want more freedom. Yeah, I want my kids to have a better world. But what does a better world look like? What would have to happen for that better world to be there for my kids? Oh, I want a better world. Yeah, I want more freedom. But do you really know what that means? And do you have it written down? Are you working intentionally? Less than 3% had written down goals. 13% had goals. They wanted to make more money, but they didn't have them written down. And 84% had no idea what they wanted. There's a saying that says you either build the life of your dreams or someone else will hire you to build their life of their dreams. So which side are you going to be on? Now, the World Economic Forum, they have a plan, and they have it written down. And they've published it for everybody. It's not a conspiracy. It's in the open. It's on their website. They've picked it up from the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This week, as I said, the World Economic Forum was meeting. Klaus Schwab said that he's calling everybody to, quote, master the future. They are going to master the future. Well, they think they are. Not if we can do anything about it, right? Am I right? Not if anything I can do about it. So, but they have a plan. They want to master the future. These guys get together on their private jets and go to this beautiful ski town and do all that thing. And they get together to think about the world they want. And they come up with plans that they want and how they want the world to look like. What they get and what you get. The world where you get to eat crickets while they eat steaks. The world where they fly around in their private jets and you get to live in a 15-minute city. That's their plan. It's not a conspiracy. It's written down. They wrote down their goals. They meet together regularly and they work on them together. And per the Harvard MBA study, someone who writes down their goals are most likely to achieve them. So they're organized. They've clearly laid out their goals. When I talk about do you want like freedom or do you clearly know what that means? They've spelled it out in great detail. How many articles are on the website that say what a public-private partnership is? They've broken it down into great detail. Now, they didn't ask me what I want for the future. They didn't ask you. They didn't ask us to vote on it. The point is, they have a plan. Do you have a plan? Now, there's a lot to be scared of. There's a lot of scare, fear. I'm here to give you a plan. That's how we're going to achieve massive change. Now, I believe, yeah, right? Do we want a plan? Right? Otherwise, we have a dream. I want a plan. I want a system. Okay, there's a battle for the future. I talk a lot. I have a big YouTube channel. You can check me out, Mark Moss, radio show, podcast, follow along. But I've been talking about something, the battle for the fate of humanity, I believe will be decided this decade. And I know that sounds very hyperbolic, but what I mean is that all of history is a repeating cycle. Thousands of years of history of oppression and revolution, and then freedom, and then oppression, and then revolution and freedom, and oppression and revolution and freedom. It repeats over and over and over and over. But I believe that cycle is going to end. And it's going to end one of two ways. And you and I are going to decide which way it ends. It's going to either end in permanent oppression, where technology is able to build the perfect prison that we may never come out of again. Through social media, they can affect what we see, what we think, our emotions. They can affect how we communicate, how they censor us, how they keep us apart. And they may prevent, now we add in social credit scores and CBDCs, and we can go into all the fear. But you get it, right? You guys are paying attention. And they may build that perfect panopticon that we may never come out of again. The Matrix. But I got kids, and that's not the future I want. The other option is that we defeat that, and they never get that into place, and we have the tools to prevent it from ever happening again. And I believe that battle is decided this decade. And so we get to decide which future we want. The WEF's decided what future they want. They have goals by 2030. So we either let that happen or we don't. Now, I believe it all starts with the money. I believe if you watch the Star Wars, there was the rebels versus the Empire, and the Empire had the Death Star. And if you guys remember, at the end, Luke Skywalker and the group flies in with their X-Wing fighters, and they got to fly through the channel, and they had to drop the bomb at the perfect spot on that red dot down there. And he dropped the bomb, and he hit it, and he flew away, and the Death Star blew up, and the Empire crumbled, and the rebels won. Woo! For us, that red dot, that's the money. Control the money, control the world. The X-Wing fighter and the missile flying in, that's Bitcoin. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm going to plant that in your mind. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm talking about something more practical, a better plan. So there is a war on truth. The number one thing, the number one problem, it's all over the headlines this week. The number one problem is misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. It's the most dangerous thing we have. Because you guys are all too stupid to know the truth. They must protect you. They must. They have to tell you what the truth is. Otherwise, how would you know it? Even if the truth hit you in the head, you wouldn't know it, right? That's what they think. We can see Murray Rothbard wrote in Anatomy of the State. If you guys haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. It's like an hour read. You can buy it for like $5 or $6 on Amazon. You should read it. He talks about what is the state? What does the state want? But more importantly, he talks about the greatest danger to the state is you, independent intellectuals, people that can think for themselves, people that don't need someone to tell them what the truth is. That's the biggest enemy of the state. You guys, you're all here thinking for yourself, learning. They don't want that to happen. You're the problem. You're always the problem. You guys are all problems. I know that. You conservatives, yeah, right? You're the problem. You conservatives, you don't want to go along with our globalist plans. It's a threat to our democracy. First of all, let's be clear. The U.S. is not a democracy. That's what they want us to believe. It's not. It's an independent republic, right? Don't let them change that word. It's not a democracy. But even if it was, wouldn't a democracy mean that it's representative of the people, what the people want? So how could it be a democracy if the people don't get to voice their opinion? Which, of course, it couldn't be. We see the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, put out a national terrorism advisory. The greatest threat we have is this false, misleading narrative conspiracy theories. They've all been proven true in 2023 or 22, but either way, they're the problem. We have Jacinda Ardern, who, by the way, just announced she's retiring. Woo! Yeah, right? Thankfully. She was on her way. She was probably only had a couple years left to live. I don't know. Have you seen the pictures of when she took office to now? She's like aged like 50 years. That's what happens when you live an evil life, in my opinion. But she went to the UN, a couple months ago and said, we need global cooperation to create censorship online. So that's their big plan, right? We need to censor. That's what I'm talking about, these tools. But look, you guys, the silent majority. The silent majority. Why are we so silent? You know, I grew up in a family of veterans. My grandfather was decorated World War II. My father flew jets in Vietnam. I was born into an Air Force family. I thought I would go to war one day. I didn't, luckily. I would have. I thought I would. But this is our war. And today we had people in World War II, boys storming the beaches of Normandy, watching their friends get blow up around them. And they kept running forward. And today people are afraid to say something. You're afraid to say something? You're silent? That's the silent majority. It's a big majority. Who's the majority? We're the majority. We have the power. Now, Marxism had a plan. Supposedly, communism was defeated in the 80s and the 90s. The USSR fell, the Berlin Wall came down, hooray, communism was gone, but really it just went underground and it made its way in the United States. And they've done it through a 3-part plan. You've seen like Obama, he kind of made this big shift, appointed these czars. One of these czars was Van Jones, and Van Jones had this plan. He started talking about it as a 3-part plan. They called it a top-down, a bottom-up, and an inside-out. So we're going to place people in politics. That's top-down. Then we're going to reshape the education system to start indoctrinating people. And then the inside out is we're going to create so much agitation. When did BLM first start? Oh, during Obama. BLM, Antifa, create all this agitation to where people just want change. Just save me. Just do anything to take this away. That's their plan. Top down, bottom up, inside out. Take away your personal identity. Throw in all these things. Feminism and genderism and income and equity and UBI and blah, 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 blah. And back to World Economic Forum, they have a plan. They have a plan to control or take over the world. They call it the public-private partnership. Now, look, I know I talked about solutions. Here I am just talking about fear. But we have to understand the problem clearly if we're going to understand how to defeat it. If you're going to debate somebody, you got to know the other opponent's argument better than they do. If you're going to go into battle, you have to understand your enemy, right? So we have to understand that. So they want to take over the world, and they propose that through something called a public-private partnership. Corporatism, cronyism, fascism, whatever you want to call it. We get the government and the corporations to work together. The FBI will use Twitter to censor, right? You see how that works. We get the corporations like Disney to start making woke movies to indoctrinate the kids. So as long as the corporations and the governments work together, then we can control the people and we can have whatever future we want because we're the corporations. We have all the money. We have all the control. No, that's not how it works. We have independent intellectuals and they're rising up and there's a movement that's stirring. You can see anybody who stands up and speaks the truth. Jordan Peterson told people, stop being a victim. Wipe your face off. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Play the hand that you're dealt. Turns out people like that message. Turns out people actually want to hear the truth. Look at the rise of Austin's own right there, Joe Rogan. 200 million views a month. 200 million views a month. 200 million views a month. There's 330 million people in the United States. 200 million views a month. People, the silent majority, want the truth. So who really has the power? Who really has the power? Let's get into some hope. Let's get into some systems, some tactics. Who has the power? You have the power. And I'm not talking about because Second Amendment. I'm not talking about because we got guns. I'm not talking about because we have the masses. I'm talking about any of that. I'm talking about you have the power because you're a consumer. You have the money and you produce the goods and services. You have the money. Control the money, control the world, right? Well, who's got the money? We have the money. We control the money. You haven't really thought about this, maybe. 70% of GDP comes from consumer spending. That's your money. You control it. Corporations have something called a fiduciary duty. That means they have a legal obligation. They have a legal obligation. Sorry. Thank you for helping me. They have a legal obligation to do what's best for the company, for the shareholders. And who are the shareholders? You are. They have a legal obligation to do their best to produce profits for you. But how do they produce profits? Well, they need you to buy their products. You see the circle here? Without you buying their products, then they have no profits. And if they don't get profits, then they are failing their legal duty to their shareholders, which are you. So it's not about the governments and the corporations working together. Without the corporations getting money from you, there is no power. We can see outraged Disney shareholders want CEO voted out. He's gone. He went woke. He went broke. Disney's done. Not only that, now the shareholders are filing class action lawsuits against Disney for failing to do their fiduciary duty. The corporations have no power. You give them power by giving them your money. It's not hopeless. You're not hopeless. You're not helpless. You just haven't realized your power or how to affect it or how to use it or how to wield it. You pulled the sword out of the rock, but it's so heavy and you don't know how to use it properly. So let me show you. Now, first of all, we have to be independent. We have to be decentralized. We have to be self-sufficient. We want to be uncancelable. But for me, that doesn't mean going and living on a mountaintop and being a monk and raising a bunch of sheep. That's not what it means for me. It means getting to the point of being a Joe Rogan, having so much money and having so much power and having so much influence, no one can F with you. That's what it means. So it starts with being able to take care of ourselves. Now, you can go live on a mountaintop with a couple sheep. I'd rather have money. I'd rather have influence. And what if there was a way that we could create wealth for ourselves so we don't have to end up like Catherine Austin Fitts was talking about, how we're going to have debt and they're going to run us into a servitude life where we're going to be serfs working the land. I don't like that. You like that? No, I don't want to be a serf. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to own nothing to be happy. I want all of you guys to be owners. Everyone should be an owner. Well, how are you going to be an owner if you got no money? Now, I'm a capitalist. Anybody a capitalist? Couple capitalists here? The rest of you guys are socialists? Okay. Is everyone a capitalist? Right. Okay. So is there anything wrong with making money and preserving freedom at the same time? Anybody have a problem with that? It's the only way to do it. Oh, I thought I should go live on a mountaintop with a couple sheep. Who is that going to help? Who is that going to help? I want to affect change. I want to save the world. And unfortunately, if you're a socialist, unfortunately, you need money. You need power. You need influence to do that. So how about if we can do both? So I propose we use the same three-part plan, but we change it a little bit. So top down, politics. Yes, let's focus on politics. Now, politics is kind of a waste of time. We've seen in the last election, your vote doesn't matter. They're going to manipulate it anyway. Probably doesn't matter. Okay, well, I'm a fighter. As long as I'm breathing, I'm swinging. If there's a tool to vote, I'm going to vote. Our local politics matters more. Obviously, your sheriff is super important. Your governor is important. Your DA is important. The further away it gets, less relevant. But I don't want to spend a bunch of time and effort and energy, but I'm going to do what I can there. The next, that's top down, politics. Bottom up, education. I reach about 5-6 million people a month on my radio, my YouTube, my podcast, trying to educate, trying to wake people up. I ask that people take those ideas and go discuss them with their friends and their family and their neighbors. Discuss them. Everyone has a role to play. Listen to these ideas from Joe Rogan or from Jordan Peterson or whoever, and just go discuss them. Samuel Adams, one of our founding fathers, says it doesn't take a majority to prevail, but rather a small, irate minority keen on setting brush fires in the minds of men. The brush fires in the minds of men are ideas. It's education. Spread it. Okay, but here's where we get real change. This is the part that I like. The inside out. All of the change has come from the corporations. Disney went woke. Coca-Cola used their money. I don't know if you guys saw the story. Coca-Cola went woke, and they used their money to go after all these people that were trying to ban Coke by calling them racists. You don't want sugary drinks? You're a racist. Literally, that's what happened. So they're affecting change. And so we have these corrupt legacy systems. Anybody think the education system's corrupt? What about mainstream media? What about finance? BlackRock and those guys. Yeah. What about health? Right. They're corrupt. We all agree on that. Should I spend my life's energy and time to try to change the education system? Do you think that we could change the education system? But I can pull my kids out and I can homeschool them. I can't change mainstream media, but I reach 5 million people a month on my own. I can't change finance, but I can pull my money out of BlackRock and I can buy Bitcoin. And I can't change the health system, but I can see my own doctor, my own sister, who's a doctor. So let's look at this. Here's the opportunity. We want to make money and we want to change the world. Now, in order for us as consumers to have the power, we need to spend the money with companies that represent our best interests. The problem is that we want convenience. Now, I know that this iPhone spies on me everywhere I go, and I hate it, but I still carry it. I still carry it. You know why I still carry this? Because no entrepreneur has started another company that gives me another option. You know there's an iPhone and there's an Android. You know there's other operating systems like Graphene OS, for example. I can download Graphene OS. I could run a secure phone. I could still have all my apps secure in a sandbox. The thing wouldn't spy on me. I don't really have 20 or 30 hours to work on that. But if one of you guys could import phones from China, put the Graphene OS on there, sandbox it, and sell as a complete kit, I'd probably buy it. And I bet if enough of you guys did that, would buy it, I bet Apple would be forced to change what they're doing if they started losing market share. That's easy. Go on to Alibaba, find someone that makes the phones, download the Graphene OS, sandbox, and put them on Amazon, sell them for $400 and make $1 million. And then change the world. What about the education system? Homeschool pods. What do teachers make? 50 grand, 60 grand a year? Get 10 kids in a pod, 10 grand. You're making more money than you were as a teacher. You could scale that. I could put pods all over the country. I could bring more teachers in. I have a ranch here in Drip. I also live in California, they call it. I hate to tell you, I live in California, but that's because I'm not going to run. I'm going to fight. That's my home. Now I have a ranch. If I have to run, I got a place to go. But I have a lot of friends that are teachers in California and they hate it. They hate that they have to teach what's in the California school system. It's probably the worst school system in the country. And they hate that they have to teach it. But why? Why are they doing that? Why can't they just go start a homeschool pod, make twice the amount of money that they were working before, and affect positive change? If enough kids left the public school system, maybe the public school system would have to change. What about other things? Educational materials. What kind of books? Child books, comic books, videos, educational videos, all types of education that could be made for this giant movement of kids that are going to homeschool. We need all this education materials. Like I said, videos, comics, whatever. What about activities? Now, you could take your kids to drag shows. You guys want to do that? You don't want to take your kids to drag shows? Well, how about creating activities for kids that are homeschooled? All types of capitalist ideas that can create positive change. What about media comms? I can create my own channels, and I make a lot of money doing that. You could do the same. What about dissident technology? What about apps that preserve my privacy? Ways to do communications. Lots of ideas. The Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is an example. They created a media company, and they're creating films, and they're making a lot of money. It says one of America's fastest growing media companies and countercultural outlets for news, opinion, and entertainment. We're building the future you want to see. That's what they say on their website. Finance. I'm going to run through this quick. I'm running short on time. Finance. What about finance? All types of financial education. Everyone gives their money to BlackRock, and BlackRock uses that money against them. Why do people give them that? Because they don't know any better. They don't have any other options. They don't know what to do with their money. All types of financial education. Most of my information I put out is investing information. I'm in that space. Plenty of room for everybody. What about other stuff? All types of services that could be done on Bitcoin. All types of apps that could be built on that. All types of ways to help merchants adopt it, use it. Gold. You like gold better than Bitcoin? Fine. All types of things that could be done around gold. Alternative payment systems outside of that system. Asset management. Here's an example. Strive Asset Management. These firms tell America's public companies to adopt divisive social and political agendas that most Americans disagree with. So they give you a fund that doesn't mix politics into business. Oh, what a bright idea. They're going head to head with BlackRock. So they're giving people like you a chance to vote with your money. If you're following along here, the corporations and the governments don't have the power. The corporations need the consumers' money, and they answer to the shareholders, which are you. The government also needs the money. So you need to vote with your money. The polls, sure. The polls probably doesn't mean a whole lot. You vote with your money. The problem is, the bigger the problem, the bigger opportunity. The problem is you don't have a lot of options to vote with your money. Why not? Because entrepreneurs haven't given you the chance. It's what's called a blue ocean. Okay, so I travel a lot. I love to go to other countries. I'm a surfer, so my family, we travel all over the world surfing. We go to these remote areas, and I go to these places, maybe because I'm an entrepreneur, and I go to these places and I go, dang, I can't believe they don't have this product or service that we have back home. I bet you I could move here and start this product or service and crush it because I know it works. Look, it's proven. People do it. I could just do it right here. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. You could take any product or service right now, today in America, and just position it to a values-based customer and crush it. Let me give you an example. Health. I'm not going to go super deep into health. Care consultants, supplements, education. Here's a couple ideas. Okay, the bottom one right there, there's a razor. You got the razor market's crowded. I use like a Gillette, like a disposable. You got like Dollar Shave Club, you know, whatever. Like, it's a crowded market. There's Harry's Razors, a big one. They sponsored Ben Shapiro's show. You guys know Ben Shapiro? Yeah, he does pretty good work, but he's really angry and he says really mean things. So he said that men can't get pregnant. How dare he, right? How dare he say that? And Harry's Razor, his sponsor, got so mad. They said, Ben, you have to make a formal apology. You have to make a formal apology, or we're going to pull our sponsorship. And you know what Ben's response was? You know what? As a matter of fact, I cancel your sponsorship. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, instead of Harry's Razors, I'm going to create Jeremy's Razors. And he did. And you go to Jeremy's Razors website, and the thing that pops up on the homepage is stop giving your money to woke corporations that hate you. Buy Jeremy's Razors instead. And they are crushing it. Millions and millions and millions of dollars are coming in. They just took a razor and just said, stop giving your money to woke corporations. That's it. Now, one of my friends here in town, another Austinite, is heading out to Nashville where they're focused, where they're based. And now they want to start launching additional products, just like a razor, but other products to a values-based customer. Look, you guys ever heard of like Patagonia, the clothing? They're super woke. They want to save the environment. They got good stuff. I have one of their jackets. It's awesome. Super lightweight, super warm. They don't sell their jackets based off of their technical capabilities. They don't say our jacket is lighter or warmer or the zipper's better or whatever. They say that we take a portion of our funds and we're trying to preserve the environment. They're not selling against all the other jackets. There's no other jacket that competes with Patagonia because they sell to a values-based customer. It's a blue ocean. You can go on to Amazon and find the top 10 selling products and take all 10 of them and private label them and position them to a values-based customer, just like Jeremy's and Harry's Razors. My Pillow, My Patriot Mobile, Black Rifle Coffee. Are you seeing the picture here? So, did we have any capitalists here? I don't remember. Was there any capitalists in the room? There were, right? So capitalists like to make money. Is that how it works, I think? I think that's how it works, right? I recently wrote a best-selling book, shameless plug. It's called The Uncommunist Manifesto. Check it out on Amazon, Uncommunist Manifesto. And we basically took the Communist Manifesto and rewrote it to be uncommunist. And so, of course, instead of being communist, we're capitalists. I mean, I broke it down. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and it's about taking our private property, taking our scarce resources, and using them more efficiently and more effectively. Is that a good definition? So you have property. You have your body as your property, I believe, anyway. Fauci doesn't. I believe your body is your property. I believe your intellectual ideas are your private property, your money. So why aren't you using them more efficiently and more effectively? You're going to go out there and bang your head against the wall? Or are you going to go make millions and millions of dollars by serving a group of people that are desperately needing to be served, the silent majority that need a voice, but they're waiting on people like you to give them a way to voice their opinion, their vote with their money? You can get fabulously rich and you can change the world at the same time. Does anybody like that idea? Now, I'm an entrepreneur, so maybe that's the way I see the world. Maybe you guys aren't, but you could be. You could be. My book mentor for 25 years now, my good friend Robert Kiyosaki, wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is still the bestseller 25 years later. He talks about that what we need is we don't need more content in our brain. We need more context. So if I had a cup, I don't want to just fill up the cup. I need a bigger cup. You don't know what you don't know, so we need a bigger cup. And then we can fill up the content with the bigger cup. So I've just given you a bigger cup. It's up to you to now go fill that cup. It's not that hard. There's a million YouTube videos that can teach you how. I have a link right here. This is the top 5 ways to build wealth in this new parallel economy. And so just if you need ideas, I already gave them to you. Go to Amazon, find the top 10 sellers and just private label them. But I have 5 other ideas of how you can build wealth in the parallel economy. I believe it's the biggest opportunity for the rest of the decade. I believe that we can all get fabulously wealthy because I'm a capitalist, and I would hope that you guys want to be capitalists as well. And we can create positive change because the public-private partnership will fail. It will fail because I will not rest until it does. And I believe that you guys are with me. Who's with me? All right. That's it. Check it out. That's what I got. Thanks. Great job, Mark.
Give it for Mark Moss, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Now he's going to do the mic drop. Wow. That a guy. So, yeah, who answered yes? So you're going to make millions of dollars. Let's go. All right. Thank you so much, Mark Moss. That was absolutely incredible. Remember, guys, there's no need to be afraid of money. And more often than not, the way we think about money, it dictates how much wealth we will produce in our lives. So let go of all those limiting beliefs and all that scarcity mindset, and let's make some money and free our people. All right, let's kick it over to Mexico.
All right, thank you guys. Give a round of applause for Mark Moss, everybody. We're going to continue to roll on. You guys having a good time? Y'all learning some new things? Starting to think about building new systems? I got a couple of announcements before we get to our next in-person speaker here. Who was at last night's Intentional Community Eco Village networking? Did you guys enjoy that? Wasn't that epic? The rest of you missed out, I guess. Now we're going to be sending out a list of everybody who came and presented last night. Name, email. You can contact them if you want to learn more about the projects. For those of you who are here, hopefully you made some face-to-face connections. I also want to mention this lovely mural, which is right here behind me. And we're going to show a really awesome picture on screen for the online audience. This, as we mentioned the other day, is being auctioned right now. There's a table outside you can go check out. Myra Gomez, who is Miriam's sister, you can check out the full art. There you go, a little picture from Ramiro. Thank you, brother. If you are interested in this, they have a starting bid at $1,333, $1,333 USD. And you are able to get this wall taken apart and shipped to your house or wherever you want to put it up. Amazing. They literally, as I said the other day, painted this in 24 hours on top of my roof. Built the wall, painted it all, deconstructed it, and brought it back here. So it's amazing art, and I think it fits perfectly with the vibe that we have here going on. If you're interested, Myra's email is myragomezart@gmail.com. She's also right outside. Please go see them. And can we get just anybody want to throw in another bid? 1333. Anybody got anything more than that right now? 1,500 right here on me. Who's gonna beat me? We'll see next round. And also, we have some excursions happening in the next couple days. There's hikes going on. There's an ayahuasca ceremony next Tuesday. You can see Adriana at the table outside right when you walk out this side here. So, all right, without further ado, I want to present our next speaker. He's a friend of mine who's been here in Mexico. He's working in San Miguel. He's doing Freedom Cell work out there. And he also has a podcast called the Borderless Podcast. We're going to hear from his presentation in just, well, right now. Please welcome James Guzman, everyone. All right. Thank you, brother.
All right. This is great. Thanks so much for inviting me. John and Derek, this is phenomenal, right? Let's give it a round of applause to them and everybody that came. It wasn't planned, but does this work? Maybe I'll just do this. It wasn't planned, but what I'm going to be talking about is very much in line with Catherine Austin Fitts. So if I know people might watch this on a recording, you might want to go back and watch hers as well after you're done with this. So anyways, as you said, I'm James Guzman, and I'm James Guzman. I have a Borderless podcast and a blog. I have a YouTube channel as well, so you can check that out. I've been involved in what they call the Liberty Movement for like 15 years, and moved out of the U.S. about 10 years ago or more. And since then, I've been helping people that want to live internationally, specifically here in Mexico. I help people with real estate, advice on immigration and insurance, or whatever that people need to do with their transition to come down here, and being more international with themselves and their investments, their assets. So today's talk, I'm going to outline a book, and the book is called The Fourth Turning. I don't know, has anybody here ever heard of that book? Okay. Yeah, it's an old book. A lot of people talk about it on especially like online investment podcasts and things like that. A lot of people are familiar with it. And so I'm going to outline that book, and we'll talk about maybe some of the things that we can take from that, how it goes along with other people's predictions about what we're living through, what we're going to see, and then maybe how we can use some of the things that they tell you to do in that book in our own lives, how I've used it. And so that's my plan today. I think I have allergies or something, so I apologize for that. I'm not sure if it messes up the speech here. So let's go. Okay. So the book is written by William Strauss and Neil Howe, and it's about the cycles of history and how they apply to the destiny of the United States. They took all these cycles from all different societies throughout the world, and then they juxtaposed that to the United States to see where we might be today, and what we can do to prepare for the future, knowing that those things. So hopefully, what I'm hoping is that with this talk, we help you solidify what the future conditions are that you should be planning for, and how one can survive and even thrive through this transition. All right. So yeah, the first slide here. So as I said, this is a theory of cycles, and they actually wrote several books, but the most popular one, and what the word comes from, is called The Fourth Turning. And you could think of it as cycles, or you could think of it as the seasons of history. So essentially what we're talking about is just as there are seasons of life, seasons throughout the year, seasons of life meaning when you're young, middle-aged, older. These are different points in your life, different points in the year. And they would argue that there are also seasons of societies that go through cycles. The last speaker was talking about cycles, and so that's basically what they're talking about. Each season, from their analysis, is about 20 to 22 years. And 4 of them together is what they call a saeculum. And saeculum in Latin means a long human life or a natural century. Okay, so one of these is a saeculum. And next slide, please. We'll show you the next slide. There we go. So this is the breakdown that they have for the United States and the different saculums and turnings. So you can see it's pretty interesting. Give me a second to look at that. And they talk about 7 specific saculums in Anglo-American history. That's what we're talking about. And they go into depth into each of the characteristics of each of these turnings and the archetype of the people that are born into them. And they really, obviously, it's a long book, so they go into a lot of details about this. I'm not going to go into all that, but if you're more interested, I would urge you to read the book. There are 4 seasons, which starts with high, awakening, unraveling, and crisis. Anybody guess which one we're in now? All right. Yeah, and so from their analysis, they say that this started in 2008, which might make sense. Makes sense to a lot of people that like me, that were young at that time, maybe just getting started in the economy, working, maybe buying first house at that time, and then everything crashed, and it's never really been the same since then. And they would say that it ends about 2029. They characterize crisis as an era of destruction, often involved in war or revolution, in which institutional life is destroyed and rebuilt in response to a perceived threat to the nation's survival. After the crisis, civic authority revives, cultural expression redirects towards community purpose, and people begin to locate themselves as members of a larger group. This is not in the book, but I do want to point out that you'll notice in this last saculum, I find it to be unique from the other ones in that we're talking about the post-World War II order, right? Or what some people would call the global American empire, which we've been kind of in, where the United States is basically maintained order throughout the world through its hegemony from the economy underpinned by the U.S. dollar. Also, entities like the World Bank, IMF, NATO, that are basically controlled by the United States. So if we do have this turning, we're not just talking about something in the United States, we're talking about something that's going to affect the entire world, or as some people say, we all know, New World Order, right? So that would go along with this this book. Next slide, please. Okay. So put it basically, probably a lot of people have seen this popular meme. It goes along with the idea that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. Okay, that's kind of the idea. Simplify it. And of course, a lot of people, if you look it up, you're going to see a lot of people are going to criticize the theory of the turnings of this book, because they'll say, well, it's pseudoscience, it's not scientific, and that's true, it's not. Okay, this is not something scientific, this is a speculative theory. It could be completely wrong, so I just want to put that out there, and maybe we can go back to the 90s, early 2000s, and it'll be like that for the next 1,000 years. Could happen. And another thing kind of I think about is maybe some people are familiar with Dave Smith. He's kind of a libertarian comedian, podcaster. He has a comedy special, and he said, and when he has a bit, and he said, I don't know if there's any historians out there, but if you could please tell me if there was a country that was a great nation. I'm sorry. It was a country that was a great nation, a superpower. It first started out as a republic, turned into an empire. It spread itself way too thin militarily. Then the culture started to fall apart, and it overspent, and then everything turned out great. Yeah, right. So, I mean, it does seem that it would make sense that we'd have these cycles, or things kind of have a inevitability. And I do want to point out also that other people make predictions that seem to match up with that theory almost perfectly. So another person who has written about similar cycles of society is Ray Dalio, who's a billionaire hedge fund manager, very popular. And he has this book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, where he argues that about the same time period, the United States is going to recede in power and China is going to be the dominant power. That's his theory. We also have both the Great Reset and Agenda 2030, which, kind of put in the same bucket. And they also predict changes in the coming world order, as you can see, 2030, right? So it kind of matches up with that. And they're not only predicting, but I would say trying to influence the future to be more favorable to themselves. They argue that this has to do with climate change, COVID, rising fascism, xenophobia, cyber attacks, stuff like that, that are just kind of naturally occurring. But I see it as simply them trying to push for their own financial and ideological interests into 2030. And if you think that it's far-fetched that this has that has anything to do with this book, I want to point out that actually Al Gore read The Fourth Turning, the original book and all of them. But when he read the original book, which put forth this theory of turnings, he said, quote, "It was the most stimulating book on American history that I ever read," and he sent it out to everybody in Congress. So a lot of people in places of power have been reading this, so might have something to do with it. Also, this all may seem very kind of deterministic, and a lot of these things are a way that we don't want to go. Kind of a white pill, I would say. This book, The Sovereign Individual, which is a book I like a lot. I read in college that kind of truly changed my outlook on a lot of things. I would recommend people read it. And in it, they argue that we will have a depression during these years due to the collapse of the welfare state in Western countries, and because of technology, they will have more of a decentralizing rather than centralizing effect. And they call the Agenda 2030 Great Reset crowd the New World Disorder, because they say that'll all fall apart because a lot of different decentralizing technologies that we have. And so it's kind of a positive way of looking at it. So anyway, so that's I think that that's the wild card here. If this is in any way correct, what is it going to look like after? And that's what we can influence. I think that's what a lot of people have talked about today, is getting ready for that, and how we can have a high or another part, the next cycle that will be favorable. And so again, according to the book, we're living through the crisis phase, which is characterized by institutional destruction, war or revolution, economic downturns, terrorism, governments printing money, individualism reaches its peak, and from the U.S. perspective, you can think of other crisis phases such as the American Revolution, Civil War, Great Depression, and World War II. All right. Yeah. The next slide, please. So, somebody back there? Okay. So, yeah, the title of the talk is To Act Your Age. And what that means is, just as as a teenager, you're not going to act like someone who's 90 years old. You need to act for the age that you're in. So in that case, we know that we're going through the crisis age, and once through that, we should be prepared to try to rebuild new institutions. So the first thing that we can do, these are all put forth in the book, and I'll kind of go through them and then expound on how maybe personally I'm doing that, and how you might want to incorporate that into your life. So first thing that they talk about is rectify, meaning returning to classic virtues. A quote from the book: build a reputation as a person of honor and integrity who values self-restraint, family commitments, cultural decency, and mutual trust. They also stress that it is not a good time to be a free agent with a reputation for being disloyal, changing deals, or being hard-nosed with everyone you deal with. They say that it is a bad time for those who are perceived as predatory or parasitic. Okay, the next one is converge. During the fourth turning, the population's core will be more important than diversity. You do not want to be unplugged or distant from your community. Another quote that they say: if you belong to a racial or ethnic minority, you should try to prepare for a possible nativist backlash. The next one is bond. Anonymity will be discredited and direct personal linkages will be valued. Having well-positioned friends could be very important. Face-to-face contact could gain new importance. Gather, people will value those with a good reputation that can work well in teams. As they've said before, this turning is when individualism peaks and people look for those that have things in common with and can work with. You might want to raise your children in a way where they can work in groups and integrate into the community. Next one is root. Your family will become your ultimate safety net. They encourage people to maintain all relationships with your extended family. Being far from a family, especially as a retiree, could cause extra hardship. Someone wealthy might want to consider transferring their assets now to possible heirs to avoid estate taxation and other government restrictions later on. One quote is, "If you have no spouse or children, you should develop an alternative family-like support network among friends, neighbors, and coworkers. The fourth turning will not be a good time to be socially stranded." Then we have brace. During this turning, today's government supply of senior benefits could erode sharply. Things like Social Security and Medicare could turn out to be no more reliable than the earlier promises of the Continental or Confederate dollars, meaning not reliable. The best way to guarantee good health care in old age is to practice good health habits today. And one quote is, "Discuss with your family how the burdens of old age would be shouldered if and when public assistance becomes unavailable." And then finally, we have hedge, meaning basically diversifying what you do, diversify everything you do, being fluent in as many languages, cultures, technologies as you can. Your business could face the total alterations of market conditions, expect public subsidies to vanish, regulatory environments to change quickly, and new trade barriers to arise. Avoid leveraged investments and leveraged debt. Invest heavily in equities to profit now. If you are going to invest, you might want to do it now before there's a big crash or something, and try to make money while you can. Before the end of the unraveling, they say hedge your portfolio and include assets in mutual and foreign markets where the same cycles do not appear to coincide with that of the United States. You can try to ensure that no one outcome such as inflation, deflation, market crash, bank panic, default on national debt would destroy your entire savings or asset base. So that's what they say. And I'll kind of go through my take and what I'm doing and maybe what you could do as well. A lot of the things that they mention are about building relationships. That's what we're doing now, I hope. That's kind of the idea with the Greater Reset and Freedom Cells. And so you want to build relationships with people around you and build networks. Of course, I've come to the same conclusion, and I've done that with my podcast, videos, blogs, stuff like that, with online relationships, which is great. But I think that in order to build, real in-person relationships, it's a good idea to be somewhere where you have some kind of roots, which is why I personally, I was what you call like a digital nomad, living out of your backpack, that type of thing, traveling around and all that for a long time. And I've changed that. And now I'm just, completely an expat. And I live here. I have an extended family. My wife's side, I got my parents to move down here as well. So, we have a place that I like and kind of that network. So I would say try to think of a place where if you do have family in a place, and that's great. And maybe try to bring them there or something like that. And I understand that everybody doesn't have that luxury, but you can also try to build other types of networks and kind of choose your family, as people say, by, starting. If you don't know where to start, you could start regular meetups. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, freedom cells. And if you don't have a freedom cell, wherever it is that you like, what do you think you should do? Start one. Yeah, that's right. Volunteer. I did that when I first moved down to Mexico. I would volunteer at a lot of the events to do photography and other things like that. And I really got to know people really quickly. Not only is it a good way to network, but it's reputation, right? They talked about reputation, so you build a reputation as someone that you're there to help and be part of the community. Again, you don't want to be looked as kind of parasitical or an outsider. Diversify. It's a good idea to diversify your skill set. A lot of, like me, when I was talking about the digital nomad thing, you have skills that you can use online, like WordPress, graphic design, and pay-per-click ads and things like that. Well, that's might not be so great. Some, you need to think about maybe some manual skills, things that that you could use. Like I would say, we're here in Mexico now. For a lot of you that live here, or maybe you are thinking of moving down here, number one thing you should do is probably learn Spanish, right? If you don't know. Imagine that the internet went out, right? How would you make a living? Okay, you really need to not think about that hard. So, maybe things like carpentry, electric work, gardening, healthcare, and things that you can fall back on, maybe start as a side hustle or something like that. And then building that is going to be, what we're talking about with an agorist, or a parallel network. That's what you can build into that you can fall back on, or be 100% of make your living on there. As far as entitlements and pensions, people that don't think about their old age, a lot of times they get put into really bad circumstances. I see that a lot here in Mexico, helping people, plan, and then they just don't, or they don't think about it, and then they get put in really bad circumstances if something emergency was to happen, or slowly, which is even worse. So just think about if you're taking government money or government assistance or a pension, if that's what you're living on, think about it again. If that's not there, what are you going to do? How would you make a living? Or things like that. So it's also good to do from a business perspective. Maybe not specifically. Maybe you're not getting like government money directly into your business, but your clients are. So think about, in this crisis mode, how that might affect your clients, and maybe how you can pivot whatever it is that you do to focus on maybe a different market, or broaden the people that you sell to. As far as getting ready for retirement, if you found a base, I would say you should consider buying land there. It's not just from an investment perspective or to rent it out or whatever, but it's a place that you have peace of mind. It's a place that you like, you're comfortable, and you can incorporate all the things that we talked about yesterday, the permaculture and food independence, and that's some of the best investments you can do. Buy a seed and have tomatoes for a long time, right? So I think that's a great thing to think about. Another thing that Catherine Austin Fitz spoke about, precious metals, commodities. Those are good things in general to hold during these times when they talk about money printing, right? And if you do have some kind of stocks, think about buying them in different markets. Hopefully you can get some return, dividends, and markets that aren't 100% correlated with the United States economy. Keeping cash outside of banks, different currencies, I also think is a good idea. And when you are using banks, think about it consciously, what banks you're using. It does not have to be a bank that with somewhere you live, although maybe you like to do that person to person, but go to a bank that you trust. Maybe you like their practices, and don't just bank with any big bank. Again, as Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about, I think that's a good thing to think about. Also, diversifying what you call a government risk, which is getting residencies, passports. We saw how important this was with COVID. I know, again, we're talking about agorism. Some people want to just find ways that they can not do that, and I mean, that's fine. But another way you can think about it is to actually have more. So have more residencies in places or passports that you won't be restricted from leaving or from going somewhere in one of the hubs that you've chosen. Also, I think we all know you want to diversify your media consumption. We all do that, I think, here, and going to learning through events here like the Greater Reset. Yeah, so that's an overview of at least one theory of what we are living through and how to prepare. And I hope that can spur some of you to think about the future, incorporate some of the ideas to get through the current season, and make the one coming one positive for yourself and hopefully all of us. So that's all I got. Thank you.
All right. All right. Give it up for James Guzman, ladies and gentlemen.
Make some noise, everybody. Thank you for that, brother. Appreciate you. All right. Thank you, guys. We're going to continue on with our next speaker. Pass it back to Texas.
All right, Derek, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about Mexico for a sec. We're getting Tom here, but you guys are down there. I've spent some time in Mexico. James lives in Mexico. Why is Mexico a popular destination for freedom people?
I think there's a lot of different reasons. First of all, I want to preface this by saying Mexico, like any place on this planet, is not perfect for every person. Just like any other place, there's bureaucracy, there's things you got to deal with. But there are some benefits of it, at least for myself. Like in the U.S., when I drive around, for some reason, I just feel extra paranoid. Maybe it's all the cops everywhere doing speed traps and bothering people for little simple things. In Mexico, even little freedoms or liberties that you might take for granted are available if you care. Things like you can drive down the road maybe a little faster than the speed limit and nobody's going to bother you. You don't necessarily need to wear a seatbelt. Things like that you might not think about too much. But for me, in my experience, being in the U.S. and places like that, Western countries that are have funding for cops and super cops and all that stuff, they're there to make a quota, to bother you, to send you to court, and in many cases to ruin your life. It's just different out here. It's not the same. It's not set up the same. And as I mentioned a little bit yesterday on the stream, that here specifically in Michoacan, where we're at in Morelia, we have places like Cheran within 2.5 hours away, where they've celebrated 13 years of no government, no cops, no cartels, because they came together, 13 women, blocked the trucks, they got sticks and stones, and they fought back for their liberty. They stood up when the time was necessary. And it's that kind of spirit that I really believe is still here in parts of Mexico. Not to say that every Mexican is just ready to stand up and fight the government or something like that. Just like all people of the world, Mexicans are diverse, and some might be bought into, keeping up with the Joneses and chasing that modern lifestyle and the technology. But there are many people who are increasingly skeptical of these systems. And really what we're trying to do out here, John, and the people we want to work with are those who want to be integrated with Mexicans and say, hey, we ran away. In many places, people ran away. For me, I came to Mexico before COVID, knowing I was going to be here. But many people ran away from Germany, Australia, Canada to get away from the COVID mandates. And for me, part of that solution is to integrate with the Mexicans and to say, if you don't want to happen what happened to my country, if you don't want it to happen here, then we need to work together, right? Because otherwise Mexicans will blindly embrace all the same technology, all the same tools that the Western countries are using now to control us and to try to limit our freedoms. So I just want to say that if you do come here, come with the mind towards integration, connecting. We don't need more expat bubbles. We need more integration between Mexicans and expats. So, yeah. John?
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Derek. Thank you. We do have Tom. I just want to echo what he was saying. It's a great place to be. There's a lot of opportunity for freedom. And one of the things that Derek and I are working on is this Texas-Mexico connection. Of course, we share a fake, non-existent status border. There's also a lot of culture. Of course, this area that we stand in today used to be Mexico, but to echo Lila June, going back even further, it used to be indigenous cultures, right? But there's a rich history and a lot of integration between there's a Tejano culture, right? You guys know Tejano. That's my grito. All right. My dad, when we're listening to Tejano music and there's a bunch of gritos, like, he says this every time. Several years ago, I got second place in a grito contest. All right. Anyway, if you're looking for a place to flock, to create more freedom in your lives and to join really, really dedicated tribes of people that aren't just wallowing away in the halls of the political centers, but rather we're creating new systems. Many of them are throwbacks to old systems. I highly encourage you to consider Texas, especially Central Texas, especially old Bastrop County. The locals say Bastrop, not Bastrop, Bastrop. We were in Buda last year for the Greater Reset. Everybody thought it was Buddha. We were a bunch of Buddhas in Buda. But anyway, we do have Tom Woods. Tom Woods is a great friend of mine. He has been helping people to understand what liberty is all about for quite some time. He's a prolific author. I always botch that word, so I had to say it slow. He's a prolific author. He's got a really one heck of a podcast. And, you know, a lot of his career has been about educating people. Recently, he shifted with this School of Life program, and he's helping people to create prosperity, helping people to realize their true power, helping to connect people, and really putting this whole idea of free market economics into practice. And today he's going to share with us about the magic and power of entrepreneurship. Mr. Woods, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to click the present button there.
Yep, I'm all ready to go. So
yep,
hello,
and then you'll
everybody.
go full screen, so we won't be able to see you, but you'll just see your screen. But as you
Right,
cycle
and I
through
won't
the
be able to
slides,
see
it'll be good.
you or me, but that's okay. I'll put the screen on in just a second. First, I want to say hello to everybody and extend my apologies for not being there in person. But this is because John and I coordinate very badly. We're both having a conference on the same set of days. So
Yeah.
I have an event going on in Orlando starting just a few hours from now. But yet here I am at the service of my good friend and hardworking activist, John Bush, who apparently has not aged since the Ron Paul presidential campaign when he looked about 14. But he's still, whereas the rest of us, the burden of doing this has really taken a toll on us, but not old
It's
John.
the kratom.
So whatever he recommends, you do it. All right. What I'm going to do in a minute is share my screen just to run through a few slides. And the purpose of the slides is more, to be perfectly honest, more for me than for you, to make sure, given the limited time I have, that I don't go off on a 15-minute tangent. It will keep me disciplined and structured. But I'm actually taking the slides from a presentation I made to an entrepreneurship class my 17-year-old daughter is taking. And they said, well, your dad's an entrepreneur. Why doesn't he come speak? I thought, well, they have no idea what they're in for. But I actually gave them a really, really nice presentation. And the point of it, yes, it's true. There's detail in it. If you follow the structure that I'm describing, you can start a business on this basis, no problem. But the real point I wanted to make was that any of you in the audience can do this. And sometimes our problem is a mindset problem. It's that we think of ourselves as consumers, right? Other people produce things and I just consume them. But we got to break out of that, because those other people who consume things, they don't come from another planet. They're not from a different species than you are. They're exactly the same as you. They've just had one more insight than you have, which is that they also have something to offer to the world. So I made this presentation, and then I visited a bunch of her friends, and they all basically thought I was the coolest dad of the whole bunch. So I don't know if you guys are going to have the same experience, but I'm going to share the portion of those slides that is relevant to our conversation here. So I want to talk today about the simple path to build some kind of an online business. Now, not a business that requires 100 employees or a lot of headaches or anything like that. The kind of business that you could start running in your spare time. And, the more time you devote to it, the better it'll do. But it's not like opening a retail store and you have to be there 12 hours a day. That's the beauty of the technology we have. Now, we have to struggle a lot with technology these days. We have to struggle with being canceled and being censored and suppressed. And we have to think about algorithms, which is a word we hadn't even used since elementary school. And now we have to worry about a Facebook algorithm and all that. But we have, nevertheless, more opportunity than ever. I'm very happy to be alive at this particular moment in history, despite the challenges we face, because we also have tremendous opportunities. Gosh, I sound like a politician. We face many challenges, but we have lots of opportunities. All right. Well, it's true, though. It's true. So what I want to do is show you, in effect, how you can, if I may borrow the book title of a friend of mine, just released a brand new book. My friend Matt McWilliams, who is a libertarian, as it turns out, wrote a book that just came out called Turn Your Passions into Profits. And I love that title, because wouldn't we all like to do that? Now, it's true, not every single interest you might possibly have can generate profits for you. And you're going to have to come to terms with that. And secondly, it's quite possible that something that bores you to death could nevertheless make you a lot of money, at which point I bet it will stop boring you to death. If it does start bringing in money, I bet you'd be darn excited about it. So it's not always true that we, quote, follow our dreams and we just pursue that thing that we're most passionate about. But in a lot of cases, you can do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can determine whether a particular niche you might want to enter which could be anything, anything from golf to parenting to home education to gardening, nutrition, diet, exercise, fitness, spirituality. I mean, it just goes on and on, whether or not a particular niche is a good one for you to enter. Now, if you like promoting something that you like and believe in just because you like and believe in it, well, that's great. I mean, by all means, go do that. But that's a hobby. Right now, I want to talk about what it means to actually have an online business. And I think it's more and more clear to us these days, the urgency of this. I mean, obviously 2020 makes it extremely clear because at a moment's notice, at the drop of a hat, they can shut you down if you have a physical business, and they can turn the local population against you. It's unbelievable how they poisoned people's minds against people engaging in commercial activity. Crazy. But if you worked in front of a screen, you didn't have that problem. And so as some kind of an insurance measure, at the very least, we at least want to have the knowledge as to how we would do this. So I'm going to run you through it. Here we go. And you're going to say, Woods, it can't, you only have 24 minutes left. How can you possibly do it? Just you watch, my friend. Just you watch. Now I'm going to share my screen because I am going to, let's see, screen sharing, share screen. I want a particular tab. Actually, you know what? No, I want the entire screen. Doggone it. Let's see. Is it going to let me do that? Yes. Because I'm going to take my slides and make a slideshow out of them. All right, John, I assume you guys can see this. So if I don't hear you, I'm going to assume everything's okay. No news is good news.
Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Everything is not okay. Rebecca C., do we have his slides as a little thingy down there on StreamYard? We do not? We're checking. We have, yeah, there we are. All right, Mr. Tom Woods.
Okay, let me go back to the slideshow format then.
Thanks,
Okay.
Tom. You're doing a great job. We love you. Give it up for Tom Woods, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't want people to see what a mess my desktop is. The icons and crap everywhere. I have to organize. Anyway, I think given the time that we're constraints, I won't give you my story of how I became an entrepreneur. But instead, I'm going to go into the simple business. Here's the simple business. And you think there's more to it than that? There isn't. Build an email list and send offers to it. And I have a ton of friends who do that for a living. I have a friend who his entire business, and he is almost at 7 figures a year, consists of sending one email per day. He sends an email, and that's his business. Now, obviously, he didn't start his business that way. And obviously, he spent a long, long time getting to that point. But when you do get to that point, oh, it's very, very satisfying. So in effect, what we're simply doing is adapting to the online world, a formula that actually a lot of people had used offline. It's just that it's a million times easier to do online. So in effect, what I do, let's take, for example, because I have 2 different email lists. Let's take my libertarian email list. I have an email list that kind of revolves around my podcast, The Tom Woods Show. And so on that email list, I talk about current events, I talk about economics, I talk about history, all these sorts of topics. But I have to make a living, so I don't just send out an email about these little topics. I have a little pitch at the end for something, some kind of thing that generally has something to do with what I've just talked about. So for instance, I might promote a program that John Bush is putting out. John Bush is really, really knowledgeable about Bitcoin, for example. Well, if Bitcoin's in the news and I write a newsletter issue about Bitcoin, that's a natural segue into, oh, by the way, if you want to know more about this, go over to see John Bush and he'll tell you all about it. And then here's the awful secret. John and I split the loot. And that's how I make my living. And I do it with an email list. So we're going to go through how you do this. But to build an email list, you can't just take the email addresses of all your friends and your neighbors and people who emailed you once because they're the customer service person at JCPenney. You can't just put all those email addresses on a list because then you will get spam complaints and you will be fined and hounded and punished, and serves you right because that's not how you build an email list. The way you build an email list is as follows. First of all, an email list of the kind we're talking about, and by the way, don't be prejudiced against me because I have MailChimp on the screen. I'll get to that in a minute. the kind of email list we're talking about is a list of people who have voluntarily indicated their eagerness to hear from you through email. So they have to have done something to indicate that they've given you permission to email them. Otherwise, you can't, because that's considered spam and it's against the law. So an email list then is something you have to create by making it appealing for people to get on your email list. Now, most people get a lot of email already, and they would rather slit their throats than get more email. They would. They don't want to be on your email list. So you have to figure out a way to break down that resistance. And I'll tell you something, John and I are good at breaking down people's resistance, right? After a while, they're begging to be on our email lists. So we'll get into in a minute how we do that. But when you have an email list, you are not going to use whatever email platform you normally use to email your grandmother. You use a service called an autoresponder. MailChimp is an example, and I'm on MailChimp only because it's very hard to switch from one platform to another. I would love to get off MailChimp because it's not really completely dedicated to free speech. It's just hard to make the transition. I have a friend named Ben Settle who created his own free speech email autoresponder service called Berserker Mail. I think it might be a little bit more expensive, and it's really dedicated to marketers, but he did it with no censorship in mind. I also use a service called Aweber to send emails, but the point is your autoresponder service automates this whole process. So somebody joins your email list, you don't have to, each time somebody joins, go in and manually add the person to the list, or then if they want to leave the list, you have to go in and take them off. The autoresponder does all that for you. And then when you're set to send an email, you don't send it the way you'd send it to your grandmother. You go into Aweber, you type out the email there, and it sends it automatically to all the people who are still subscribed to your list. And if you use something like Aweber, you get, it's fairly inexpensive. They might even have a free month, or I forget what their deal is, but they have a pretty good. It's not terribly expensive. It depends in part on how many subscribers you have. So if you have only 50 subscribers, you're not going to be paying $1,000 a month. So as your business grows, the email expense grows along with it. So you're not paying, what some giant corporation is paying when you're just getting started. But again, how do we, if I say to people, I'm going to send you a free newsletter, nobody subscribes to that. It's a free newsletter and they don't want it. So you have to offer them something else free to get them to accept your free newsletter. Unbelievable how people are, isn't it? So we use something called a lead magnet. And that's a nice image, and the use of the word magnet, because like a magnet, the lead magnet draws people to you. It draws people to your email list and makes them want to sign up. So I'll give you a great example, because I am in a couple of different niches. I mean, I'm in homeschooling. So, I would have people who are interested in that coming to me. But I'm also into libertarianism, which is a hard niche to be in. It's very hard to monetize that. I'm also in internet marketing, where I teach people how to build and run online businesses. So I create so-called lead magnets in all these various areas that will be appealing to people who are interested in these sorts of things. So maybe they have a problem. My lead magnet will solve it. So suppose you're in the golf niche and you're just so frustrated with your swing. But I've got 3 outstanding tips that will get you a better golf swing by, 3 weeks from now. You're dying to get that, but you got to subscribe to my email list to get it, and you get it as a free gift. And then, of course, with one click, you can always unsubscribe from the list. That's what a lead magnet is. It's something it's irresistible, like a magnet. So during COVID, for example, I wrote an ebook called "Your Facebook Friends Are Wrong About the Lockdown." Well, a lot of people wanted that because they wanted to tell their friends where they could go stick it after, they saw all their friends pathetically supporting the lockdowns. So that did very well. Then I continued to write a lot about COVID, and I was particularly keen on sending people on my email list charts that showed that what they were telling us was the opposite of the truth. And so I put a lot of those charts together, charts that just sear themselves into your brain so you can never forget them. And I called it COVID Charts CNN Forgot. Now, I like that. It's not like libertarian COVID charts, whatever that would mean. But if you hear COVID Charts CNN Forgot, you know what I'm talking about. These are things that you're not going to see on television. And that did really well. People are dying for honest, reliable information about COVID and lockdowns and all that stuff and masks and all that. And I gave it to them. But when it comes to people, let's say, who are interested in online business, well, I have a little 30-minute crash course that I give away for free in how to build a simple business. And so people sign up for that, and then they're on the list. Now, then the issue is, once they've gotten your lead magnet, how do you keep them on the list? I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But in terms of promoting your lead magnet, well, I use TikTok only because I was talking to a group of very young people. I have never gone to TikTok. I've never used. The thought has never even crossed my mind. I just wanted them to see platforms that they're familiar with, so they could understand this is something they can do. They create the lead magnet, and then they use various ways to promote it. Sometimes you can do a swap with a friend where I would never, ever sell or rent my email list. I mean, I would die before I would let that list leave my hands. But I would say, look, if you send a note to your people about my lead magnet, I'll send a note to my people about your lead magnet. So the ways you can promote a lead magnet are endless. And you can do it in ways that are free. Like you could have a podcast, and on the podcast, you mention how to get the lead magnet. You could make a video about your lead magnet. You could take out ads and place them in places where people who are interested in your lead magnet might find them. There are all kinds of ways of doing it. So now, how do we actually make money from an email list? Well, the first way is actually by far the most difficult. The first way is to sell your own products. And the reason this is by far the most difficult is that I would say 99.9% of mankind does not have their own products. If they did, they'd probably already have a business. So let's say that is one that we'll come back to when you've had a little bit more experience. I will say that on my email list, I do promote my own products. Like, I have a membership site where I and other PhDs. I'm not really proud of that anymore after I've seen how PhDs have destroyed the world. But other people I trust, we teach history, we teach economics, we teach the sorts of things you either didn't get or they were distorted. I call it educational malpractice, is what a lot of us suffered. So I have a website that's been going for 10 years where we have courses that you can listen to and consume on the go. You don't have to be there at 3 p.m. You can, anytime you want, they're available to you. Just, learning what we should have learned the first time, or what they kept from you. And that's done really well. So to my email list, I'll promote that. John mentioned my School of Life program. Well, this is a program where I don't teach libertarianism at all. I teach the sorts of things that are keeping libertarians up at night, which is, how do I deal with rising prices? How do I educate my kids in a world that can't stand the sight of me? How do I relocate out of a place that's suffocating me when I don't have the money? I don't think I have the money to relocate. What do I do then? What do I do with my money? I even had John Bush on talk about homesteading. I've done sessions with these people on how to be the best version of yourself. So how to give an effective speech, how to be a better writer, how to overcome self-sabotage, how to make small talk so you feel comfortable in a room full of strangers. All these sorts of things have nothing to do with libertarian theory, but they have everything to do with making practical changes to your life in the here and now. So I promote that product to my list. So I sell my own products, but it doesn't matter if you don't have your own products, because you can promote other people's things. Now, you have surely heard that Amazon, for example, I'm not saying you have to love Amazon, I'm using it as an example. Amazon has a program called Amazon Associates. And through that program, you sign up, and all the 8 gazillion products they have on Amazon, every single one of them has a special link just for you. So if you want to promote some book, they have a special link for you to promote that book. If you want to promote a big television, you can do that. They'll give you a special link. So if somebody clicks and buys that thing, Amazon will know that they clicked it through your link, and you get a little dough. Not very much, because physical products, you don't have a big profit margin. So not very much, but it's something. And the way the Amazon program works is, suppose on my blog, I said, hey, I have this great new TV, and here's what it is, and I link to Amazon. Suppose somebody clicks through, they don't even buy that TV. They buy a video game. I still get affiliate credit for that. I get credit for anything that goes into that person's shopping cart in the first 24 hours after clicking my link. So that is what affiliate marketing is, that you promote other people's things, and for the service of promoting it, you get a little dough. Now, I don't recommend trying to retire on the money you would make promoting products through Amazon. There are other ways to find them. So I put them on the screen here for you. Where do I find offers in my niche that are good quality, that I wouldn't be embarrassed to promote to the people on my mailing list? Because once you have them on the list, the way you make money is either by selling them something that you created or selling them something somebody else created. It's something that solves their problems. Okay, they got on your list in the first place because they had a problem and they saw you as somebody who could help them solve it. So if you're into dog training, well, maybe they have a dog who just won't behave, and you gave them a lead magnet that helps them with one little problem. Well, now over the course of however long they're on your list, you're going to give them other solutions. You're going to help them with other things. So where do you find these offers? These are, I have on the screen a few examples of places where you can look. And you go to these places and you'll see the offers are organized according to category. So again, anything from sometimes travel. Travel can be a niche. Relationships, health, nutrition, whatever it is that you're interested in, there are a lot of offers out there. And you go to ClickBank or Flex Offers or Share a Sale, and once you sign up, they will have a special link for you for these various offers. And so then in your email list, you say you have some email, and the culmination of the email is the offer. And when people click on it, you make a commission. Now, the nice thing about some of the things on ClickBank and Flex Offers and Share a Sale is that they're digital. So if I sell, let's say somebody buys a TV through me from Amazon, well, maybe I make 4% which is not nothing. If the TV costs $500, that's $20. That's not too bad. But a TV takes time and labor and materials to create. Whereas if I'm promoting a video course, yeah, that took time to create. But once it's created, sending somebody an extra copy of it costs $0. I just send somebody else the link to access it. It costs $0. So that means somebody who makes a video course can pay me much, much higher commissions. So you can wind up making 50% commissions, 75%, or even in some cases, if the person is just trying to build their email list, they'll give you 100% commissions. Every once in a while, I get that. So I go to ClickBank, Flex Offers, Share a Sale. For example, I use, for my web hosting, I use a company called WP Engine. They are lightning fast, and they can deal with websites like mine that get heavy, heavy traffic. That's what I need. I used to use other companies, but now that I built up sites that are getting so much traffic, I needed to kind of graduate up to the next level. So I use WP Engine. WP Engine runs its affiliate program through Share a Sale. So I have an account at Share a Sale. I say, I'd like to promote WP Engine. They give me a special link. And when somebody clicks on that link and buys hosting through Share a Sale, I get $200 every time that happens. Now that's pretty darn good, right? Now you all know what an extreme couponer is, I assume, right? They used to have a TV show. They might still have it, a TV show showing people who do this. With a normal person, clips a coupon or like 2 or 3, brings them to the grocery store, cashes them in. But the extreme couponer doesn't just randomly have a few. The extreme couponer makes a system out of it, and goes there and shows up and gets all their groceries for free, right? Well, that's kind of what an affiliate marketer is, because if you know your friend needs web hosting, you could send your friend the Share a Sale WP Engine link and make a commission. But the affiliate marketer takes that and makes it into a system, the same way the extreme couponer does. So maybe you make videos about showing people how to start a website, or what are the first steps you need to take when you're getting your hosting. And at the end of that video, you have a link to your affiliate link for WP Engine. And so people go to the video because you're giving them valuable information. And then when they go to sign up, they're going to use your link. So now you're not just earning an occasional affiliate commission because your friend wants web hosting. You've got a system now. So instead of earning $200 once, you can earn it again and again and again. Now, I've got 5 minutes left, and I am going to show you in the 5 minutes how you get people to open the emails, because nobody wants to. If you have a subject line that says this new software is a game changer, or this product is 50% off, or don't miss this, no one's going to read them because boring. Your emails need to be infotainment. Now, if you're on John Bush's email list, you know what I'm talking about. John has some altercation on the side of the road, with somebody. He writes about it in his email, and you want to know what's going on with old John Bush. Okay. You write to you do it the opposite of how everybody else is doing it, which, by the way, is such great advice for life in general, isn't it? So often doing things the opposite turns out to be the right way. Not getting the shot, for example, that's the opposite of the way a lot of people were leading their lives, right? So likewise, when it comes to business and email, I am on a lot of marketers' lists, and they send just atrocious email. I mean, really, if I weren't a libertarian, I would think they should be in prison for how bad these emails are. Boring. They're all just nothing but pitches. No. The way I do it, I learned from Ben Settle, and it's very similar to AM radio. You listen to a talk radio show, and there's maybe the host is just talking, or the host is talking to a guest, and that goes on for 20 minutes or 25 minutes or something. And then for 5 minutes, they have ads. So they give you something that you like, and then they pitch you something. Now, if you don't want the thing they're pitching, don't buy it. But that's how they make a living. Then my emails are the same way. I have interesting subject lines that I always deliver on. They're not clickbait. I always deliver on those subject lines. But my emails are either they're a story, or they're commentary on current events, or there's some kind of edgy opinion, or whatever it is. And people get accustomed to opening them. Now, at the beginning, the thing that's going to get people to open your emails is a really compelling subject line. But once they realize that you consistently send engaging, interesting emails, the from line will be the thing that gets them to open. They'll see that it's from you. They'll want to open it. So I'm going to give you examples of how I do this. And if you want to see how I do this, you can hop on my mailing list. You can, let's see, what would be the easiest way? Well, you can get my Charts They Forgot ebook, which is fun. If you go to chartstheyforgot.com, you can get on my libertarian list. And if you go to pathstaincome.com, you can get on my internet marketing list. You can see how I do this. So either one or both of those, chartstheyforgot.com and then pathstaincome.com. Anyway, I'll give you quick examples. Bruce Willis keeps following me around. What could that mean? Everybody else promoting this particular product was saying, this product is so awesome. Okay, boring. Bruce Willis keeps following me around. What was that? I was in New York City. Bruce Willis comes into the restaurant while I'm having dinner. I thought, what? And then I realized, I know why he's here. I'm seeing Jethro Tull in concert next to this restaurant, and I know he loves progressive rock. I bet he's going to be at the concert. Well, not only was he at the concert, he was in the row right in front of me. And he was standing in the aisle, and he was leading us in the cheers. It was absolutely bizarre. So being an internet marketer, I thought, that's an email. And I ended up winning the sales contest. I sold more than anybody else of this one info product. It was an info product on marketing. I sold more than anybody. And my email was, so this subject line, told the story about Bruce Willis. And I said, look, I'm not asking you to rescue hostages from Nakatomi Towers, which is what Bruce Willis does in Die Hard. I said, I'm just asking you to read this one little ebook that's going to teach you one little micro thing that will get you started and will help you earn your first dollar online. That was my transition. That was how I transitioned into the pitch. I see dead people handing me things to sell. Where does I see dead people come from? The Sixth Sense, another Bruce Willis thing. I'm not obsessed with Bruce Willis. Well, this was a product about how you take public domain books that are no longer under copyright and republish them and keep the dough. And how do you do that? How do you find them? How do you do it? So I had an information product teaching how to do that. Well, dead people in this case are the dead authors, and the things they're handing me to sell are their public domain books. Well, just to stay on schedule, I'll finish with this last one. Now, come on. Are you telling me you're not going to open that? You're telling me you're not going to open that? Be serious. Now that my clothes are back on, here's the good news. Here's the thing. I was at the dermatologist, and at age 50, I'm at this age where I have to have a full body examination, unclothed. And as this is going on, I'm not thinking to myself, boy, this is humiliating. What am I thinking? That's an email. Because I told them about this humiliating thing that happened, and I say, look, I have two pieces of good news. First piece of good news is I don't have skin cancer because I stripped naked for the dermatologist and they found out I don't have it. But the second bit of good news is I got a coupon code for you for such and such product. And so the emails write themselves when you see how people do them. And that's my business. That's my business. It's almost criminal how well a business like this does. If people had any idea how successful you can be building a list, sending offers to that list, writing emails people enjoy, recommending things that will help them, they would drop everything and do it. Well, I believe my time is up, so I will depart now and say thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for having the presence of mind to come to something as important as this and support our good friend John Bush.
Thank you so much, Tom. Wow. You know, that what Tom just shared really, I was like, Tom, you're giving away my business plan. You guys know the emails, right? So thank you so much, Tom. That's very practical information. Really, anybody could do that from anywhere in the world. Thanks a lot, Mr. Tom. Get it for Tom Woods.
Make some noise, Mexico and Texas. Thank you guys for being here. All right, John, you guys ready for lunch break?
We're ready. We got it all. We're ready to serve it up. Good times.
All right, everybody, we will be back. Those of you watching at home, we'll see you in an hour and a half. Enjoy your lunch. We'll see you. We're coming back with the talk from Paul Wheaton, John Bush, myself. Stay tuned. We'll be back.